The wind cut across the platform like a blade. Eliza Mercer stood alone with her single battered trunk, watching the train pull away in a cloud of steam and soot. The Montana sky stretched endless and gray above her, promising snow. She pulled her worn coat tighter, though it did little against the November cold. 32 years old, and everything she owned fit in one piece of luggage. The thought should have devastated her. Instead, she felt nothing. Numbness had become familiar. She scanned the platform. A handful of people milled about, ranch hands, a family with small children, an old woman selling bread from a basket. No one approached her. No one even looked her way. He wasn't coming. The realization settled over her with grim familiarity. Of course he wasn't. She'd answered an advertisement from a stranger, traveled halfway across the country on the promise of security and purpose, and now stood abandoned on a railway platform in the middle of nowhere. It was almost funny. Almost. "You Eliza Mercer?" The voice came from behind her, rough and direct. She turned. The man who stood there looked nothing like she'd imagined. Tall, yes. She'd expected that from the tone of his letters. Broad-shouldered, weathered by sun and wind. But she hadn't expected the hardness in his face, the way his eyes assessed her with the same cold calculation a man might give livestock at auction. He wore a heavy coat and boots caked with mud. His hat cast a shadow across features that might have been handsome if they weren't so severe. "I am," she said, meeting his gaze. "Mr. Hale, I presume." "Rowan." He looked her up and down without shame or subtlety. "You're older than I thought." "Your advertisement didn't specify an age requirement, only that you needed a woman of sound mind and body capable of bearing children." She kept her voice level. "I'm both. We'll see about that." He grabbed her trunk without asking, lifting it like it weighed nothing. "Wagon's this way. We've got a 2-hour ride ahead of us." He walked off without checking if she followed. Eliza stood frozen for a moment, fury warring with the exhaustion that had dogged her for months. She could get back on the next train, return to Philadelphia, to the boarding house where the landlady looked at her with pity, to the school that had let her go when enrollment dropped, to the slow march toward becoming invisible. Or she could follow this stranger who'd just insulted her. She picked up her skirts and walked after him. The wagon was functional, nothing more. He loaded her trunk into the bed next to supplies, flour sacks, coils of rope, a toolbox. Eliza climbed up without assistance, her hands stiff with cold. Rowan took the driver's seat and clicked his tongue at the two horses. They lurched forward without ceremony. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the creak of wheels and the wind across open land. Eliza watched the town, if you could call it that, disappear behind them. A handful of buildings, a church with peeling paint, a saloon with 2 men smoking outside. Then nothing but endless prairie rolling toward distant mountains. "You read my terms," Rowan said finally. It wasn't a question. "I did." "Then you know what this is, what it isn't." He kept his eyes on the road. "I need an heir, someone to leave the ranch to when I'm gone. I don't need conversation or companionship or any of that other nonsense women usually want. You'll have a room, meals, security. In return, you give me a child, preferably a son. After that, you're free to live as you please, as long as you're discreet." The bluntness should have shocked her. Instead, Eliza felt something like relief. At least he was honest. No false promises about partnership or affection. No pretense that this was anything other than what it was. "And if I don't conceive," she asked, "then we keep trying until you do, or until it's clear it won't happen, in which case we'll reassess." He glanced at her briefly. "You've been married before?" "No." "Any reason you can't have children?" "Not that I'm aware of." "Good." He returned his attention to the horses. "We'll be married within the week. Preacher comes through on Fridays. No point in waiting." Eliza's hands tightened in her lap. A week? In 7 days, she'd be Mrs. Rowan Hale, bound to a man she didn't know, in a place she'd never seen, for a purpose that reduced her to her most basic biological function. The old Eliza, the one who'd believed in romance and partnership, who'd read poetry and imagined a different kind of life, would have wept. This Eliza just nodded. "There are rules," Rowan continued. "The house runs on schedule. Breakfast at 6, dinner at 7. I've got men working the ranch. You stay out of their way. Don't go wandering off alone. The land's dangerous if you don't know it. And don't touch anything in my study. That room's off limits. Understood. You'll manage the house. Cooking, cleaning, mending. I've been doing it myself, and it's time I had someone else handle it. You know how to cook? I managed a household for my father before he died. I can cook. Your father. Rowan's jaw tightened slightly. That why you answered the advertisement? No family left? I have a sister in Boston. She has her own family to worry about. There wasn't room for me. The words came out flat, matter of fact. She'd made peace with that rejection months ago. And you? Any family I should know about? No. The word came out hard, final. It's just me and the ranch. Has been for years. They fell silent again. Eliza studied the landscape, trying to memorize landmarks, but everything looked the same. Rolling grass, occasional stands of trees, the mountains looming larger as they traveled. The sky remained gray and threatening. She wondered if it ever looked different here. You'll want to know about the house, Rowan said eventually. It's not fancy. 2 stories, 6 rooms. You'll have your own bedroom, mine's across the hall. There's a parlor, kitchen, dining room, my study. Water comes from a pump outside. There's a stove for heat. It's comfortable enough. I'm not expecting luxury, Mr. Hale. Rowan, he corrected sharply. If we're going to be married, you'll use my given name. Then you should call me Eliza. He made a non-committal sound. They crested a hill, and suddenly the ranch sprawled before them. It was bigger than she'd expected. A large house with smoke curling from the chimney, several outbuildings, corrals holding horses and cattle. Men moved among the structures, working even in the cold. The land stretched in all directions, fenced and ordered. 3,000 acres, Rowan said, something like pride creeping into his voice for the first time. Built it from nothing. My father left me with debt and 100 acres of scrubland. Took me 15 years to turn it into this. Every fence post, every building, I built it, or paid for it with money I earned breaking my back. Eliza heard what he didn't say. And I'll be damned if I let it die with me. As they approached, several ranch hands looked up. Their gazes slid over Eliza with curiosity and something else she couldn't quite name. Rowan's jaw tightened. Men, he called out as they reached the main house. This is Miss Mercer. She'll be my wife come Friday. You'll treat her with respect. Anyone who doesn't can collect their pay and leave. Understood? A chorus of yes, boss followed. The men returned to their work, though Eliza felt their eyes tracking her as Rowan helped her down from the wagon. His hand on her elbow was impersonal, brief. Thomas, Rowan called to a younger man with sun-bleached hair, take Miss Mercer's trunk to the blue room. Yes, sir. Thomas tipped his hat to Eliza. Ma'am, Rowan led her into the house. The interior was as promised, functional, clean, sparse. No photographs on the walls, no personal touches. The furniture looked sturdy and expensive, but chosen without care for aesthetics. A fire burned in the parlor hearth, warming the main floor. Kitchen's through there, Rowan gestured. Pantry's stocked. There's a root cellar out back. I'll show you where everything is tomorrow. Tonight, you'll want rest after your journey. He started up the stairs and Eliza followed. The second-floor hallway was narrow, with 4 doors. Rowan opened one to reveal a bedroom, simple but adequate. A bed with a thick quilt, a wardrobe, a washstand, a window overlooking the front of the property. Thomas appeared with her trunk, setting it at the foot of the bed. He left quickly, seeming to sense the tension. This is yours, Rowan said. Mine's across the hall. Bathroom's the door at the end. We share it. He paused, then added, almost reluctantly, if you need anything tonight, knock. Thank you. He nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. I know this isn't what women dream about. Wasn't exactly what I had in mind either once, but we both made this choice. I expect you to honor your commitment, and I'll honor mine. I'm not a gentle man, Miss Mercer. I won't pretend otherwise. But I keep my word. As do I, Mr. Hale. His mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Rowan. Rowan, she echoed. He left, his boots heavy on the stairs. Eliza heard him moving through the house below, then the front door opening and closing. Through the window, she watched him stride back toward the barn, already barking orders at the hands. She sat on the bed, her bed now, and looked around the room that would be hers. The trunk held everything she'd brought: 3 dresses, undergarments, a few books, her mother's Bible, letters from her sister that had grown increasingly distant over the years.
This
A life
story was
reduced to
posted
objects
on the
that
channel
barely filled a
west of
small
Betrayal.
trunk. Eliza
Please
didn't
do not
cry.
repost
She'd
it
used
in
up
any
all her
form.
tears in Philadelphia, in the long months after her father's death, when the money ran out and the world made it clear there was no place for an unmarried woman past 30 with no prospects. She'd cried when the school let her go, when her sister's letters became more obligation than affection, when the landlady gave her the ultimatum: pay or leave. Those tears were done. What she felt now was something colder, harder, determination maybe, or just the will to survive. She rose and began to unpack. Dinner was awkward. Rowan had told her not to worry about cooking that first night. He'd arranged for something simple. When Eliza came downstairs at 7, she found him in the dining room with 2 plates of beef, potatoes, and carrots. He stood when she entered, a gesture that seemed automatic rather than courteous. They ate in silence for several minutes. The food was plain but well prepared. Eliza wondered who'd cooked it. Certainly not Rowan, despite what he'd said about managing the house himself. "Mrs. Chen," Rowan said abruptly, as if reading her thoughts. "She's the wife of one of my ranch hands. Comes in twice a week to help with cooking and cleaning. She made this earlier today." "It's very good." "She's competent." He cut his meat with precise movements. "You'll meet her tomorrow. She can show you where things are in the kitchen, what supplies we keep on hand." Eliza nodded. Another silence fell. She searched for something to say, some way to bridge the vast gulf between them, but came up empty. "What did you talk about with a man who'd essentially purchased you to bear his children?" "You said you were a teacher," Rowan said finally. "I was, for 8 years, primary school, ages 6 to 12. "What did you teach?" "Everything. Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, geography, some basic science." She paused. "I enjoyed it. The children, I mean. Watching them learn." "Why'd you stop?" The question shouldn't have stung, but it did. "The school closed. Not enough students. The families in our neighborhood couldn't afford tuition anymore." Rowan grunted. "Economic panic hit everywhere. Lost some good men myself when I couldn't afford to keep them on." He took a drink of water. "You could teach again, if you wanted. After." "After?" "After the child comes. There's talk of starting a school in town. Not many children yet, but enough. They'd probably welcome someone with experience." It was the closest thing to kindness he'd offered. Eliza found herself oddly moved. "That's thoughtful. Thank you." He shrugged. "Makes sense. You'll need something to do. Ranch work isn't for everyone, and you'll go mad sitting in the house all day." They finished the meal in silence. Rowan stood, gathering the plates. "I'll clean up," Eliza said, rising. "Tonight you rest. Tomorrow you work." He carried the dishes to the kitchen without waiting for a response. Eliza remained in the dining room, feeling useless and out of place. Through the doorway, she heard Rowan moving around the kitchen, water running, plates clattering. The sounds were domestic, incongruous with the hard man she'd met on the platform. He returned, wiping his hands on a towel. "I've got work to finish in the study. You're free to use the parlor if you want. There are books on the shelf." "Thank you. I think I'll go up to my room, actually. It's been a long day." "All right." He paused, and for a moment something flickered across his face. Uncertainty, maybe, or discomfort. "Eliza, I know this isn't easy, for either of us, but I meant what I said. I'll honor my commitments. You'll be safe here, protected." "I believe you." He nodded, satisfied, and disappeared into his study. Eliza climbed the stairs to her room, changed into her nightgown, and slid under the quilt. The bed was more comfortable than any she'd slept in for months. The house was warm, secure. Outside the wind howled, but it couldn't reach her here. She should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt hollow. This was her life now. This house, this man, this arrangement. She'd made her choice, and she'd live with it. That's what women did. They survived. Eliza closed her eyes and willed sleep to come. The next morning arrived with brutal efficiency. Eliza woke to darkness and cold. For a moment she forgot where she was, reaching for the familiar weight of her father's quilt. the sounds of the Philadelphia boarding house. Then reality crashed back. Montana, the ranch, Rowan. She dressed quickly in the pre-dawn chill, lighting the oil lamp on her washstand. The house was silent except for the wind outside. She made her way downstairs, following the smell of coffee. Rowan stood in the kitchen, already dressed for work, pouring coffee into a tin cup. He glanced up when she entered. "You're up early." "You said breakfast was at 6. I assumed I'd be preparing it." Mrs. Chen left bread and preserves. "There's eggs in the cold box, bacon if you want to fry it. Coffee's hot." He took a long drink. "I eat simple in the mornings, don't need anything fancy." Eliza moved to the stove, grateful for something to do with her hands. She found the eggs, the bacon, a pan. As she cooked, Rowan sat at the kitchen table, reading a ledger, making occasional notes. The scratch of his pencil punctuated the sizzle of meat. "Men will come in for breakfast in shifts," he said, without looking up. "First group at 6:30, second at 7. They eat in the bunkhouse usually, but sometimes they'll come to the kitchen door. You don't have to feed them unless I tell you otherwise." "Understood." She plated the food and set it before him. He looked at it, then at her. "You're not eating?" "I will, after you're finished. Sit down, Eliza. We eat together." It felt strange sitting across from him at the small kitchen table, eating eggs and bacon like a normal couple. Rowan ate with focus, mechanically, clearly seeing the meal as fuel rather than pleasure. Eliza picked at her food, her stomach still adjusting to the mountain air. "Mrs. Chen will be here at 8, Rowan said. "She'll show you around properly, where everything is, what needs doing. I've told her about our arrangement. She's discreet. She won't ask questions." "That's good. After that, you're on your own." "I'll be working. If you need anything, Thomas knows where to find me. Don't wander off the property without telling someone. Weather's turning, and it's easy to get lost out here if you don't know the land." "I'm not a child, Rowan." His eyes lifted to hers, sharp. "Didn't say you were. But you're new here, and the land doesn't care how smart you think you are. People die out here from stupidity. I'm telling you how to not be one of them." The bluntness should have offended her. Instead, Eliza found it oddly reassuring. At least he was direct. "I'll be careful," she said. He nodded and returned to his breakfast. When he finished, he stood, rinsed his plate in the basin, and grabbed his coat from the hook by the door. "I'll be back for dinner at 7. If something comes up, Thomas will let you know." He paused at the door. "The wedding's Friday, like I said. We'll go into town Thursday to see the preacher. You'll need a dress. There's a seamstress in town, Mrs. Potter. Tell her to put it on my account." Then he was gone, the door closing firmly behind him. Eliza sat alone in the kitchen, listening to the sounds of the ranch waking up. Voices outside, horses whinnying, the distant lowing of cattle. This was her world now. She'd better learn it quickly. Mrs. Chen arrived precisely at 8. She was a small woman, possibly in her 50s, with gray streaking her black hair and hands that moved with practiced efficiency. Her expression was neutral, but not unfriendly. "Miss Mercer," she said with a slight bow. "I am Wei Chen. My husband Lin works for Mr. Hale. I help in the house." "Please call me Eliza. I'm grateful for your help." Mrs. Chen's eyes assessed her quickly, thoroughly. Whatever she thought, she kept to herself. "Come, I show you everything." For the next 2 hours, Mrs. Chen led Eliza through every inch of the house. The pantry, stocked with flour, sugar, salt, dried beans, preserved vegetables. The root cellar, cool and dark, lined with potatoes, carrots, turnips, jars of tomatoes and peaches put up from summer. The linen closet, the cleaning supplies, the proper way to work the stove so it heated evenly. Mrs. Chen spoke in broken but clear English, her instructions precise. She showed Eliza where Rowan liked his coffee cups, how he preferred his shirts folded, which rooms he used, and which stayed closed. "Mr. Hale, he is particular," Mrs. Chen said carefully as they stood in the parlor. "He likes things organized, clean, predictable. I've noticed. He's not a bad man, but he is hard. The ranch, it is everything to him, more than everything." She paused, choosing her words. "My husband, he has worked here 8 years. In that time, Mr. Hale, he never takes a day of rest. Never goes to town unless he must. The ranch? Always the ranch. He told me he built it from almost
This story
nothing.
was posted on the
Yes.
channel west of
His
Betrayal.
father, very
Please
bad
do not
man,
repost it
drunk,
in any form.
violent. He died when Mr. Hale was young, maybe 20, left only debt. Everyone thought Mr. Hale would lose the land, but he worked, never stopped. Now biggest ranch in the county. She looked at Eliza directly. He does not know how to be soft, only how to survive. Eliza understood what Mrs. Chen wasn't saying. Don't expect warmth from a man who never learned it. I'm not here for softness, Eliza said quietly. I'm here for security. We both are. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. Then you understand each other. That is good. Maybe that is enough. Maybe. Eliza wasn't sure what enough even meant anymore. They finished the tour in the study, the one room Rowan had forbidden her to enter. Mrs. Chen opened the door just enough for Eliza to see. A desk covered in ledgers and papers, shelves of books, a large map of the property on one wall. Everything meticulously organized. This room only Mr. Hale? Mrs. Chen confirmed. I dust once a week. You do not need to. Understood. As they returned to the kitchen, Mrs. Chen began preparing ingredients for dinner. She worked with quiet efficiency, her hands moving through familiar motions. You cook? She asked Eliza. I can. Nothing fancy, but I managed my father's household for years. Good. I show you what Mr. Hale likes. He is simple in taste. Meat, potatoes, vegetables. No spices, not much variation. He eats to work, not for pleasure. They spent the afternoon cooking together. Mrs. Chen taught Eliza how Rowan liked his steak, barely seasoned, cooked medium, how he preferred his coffee, strong, black, no sugar, how he'd eat the same 5 meals in rotation without complaint. You can try new things, Mrs. Chen said, but do not be hurt if he does not notice. He notices the ranch, the house, the food. These are just necessary. What about, Eliza hesitated, what about his personal life? Does he have friends? People he cares about? Mrs. Chen's expression grew guarded. No friends. The men respect him, but they do not know him. He keeps everyone at distance. She paused. There was a woman once, long ago, before my husband came to work here, but she left. After that, Mr. Hale, he changed, became more closed. Eliza's curiosity sharpened, but Mrs. Chen clearly wouldn't say more. That was fine. Whatever ghosts haunted Rowan Hale weren't her concern. She had her own. At 6:30, Mrs. Chen left for the day. Eliza finished preparing dinner, setting the table exactly as Mrs. Chen had shown her. At 7 precisely, she heard Rowan's boots on the porch. He came in covered in dust and sweat, his face lined with exhaustion. He paused when he saw the table set, something flickering across his expression too quickly to read. I'll wash up, he said, and disappeared upstairs. He returned 10 minutes later, clean but still wearing his work clothes. They sat down to dinner, steak, potatoes, green beans. Rowan ate methodically, his focus entirely on the food. It's good, he said after several bites. Mrs. Chen teach you? She showed me what you prefer. Smart of her. He took a drink of water. You managed all right today? I did. Mrs. Chen was very helpful. Good. She'll come twice a week from now on. Other days, you're on your own. Think you can handle it? Yes. They ate in silence for a while. Eliza found herself studying him, the hard lines of his face, the scar above his left eyebrow, the way his shoulders carried constant tension. He was probably handsome under all that hardness, but it was difficult to tell. He wore severity like armor. We'll go to town Thursday morning, Rowan said abruptly. See the preacher, get you a dress. Wedding's at noon Friday. Simple ceremony, just the preacher and 2 witnesses. We'll be back by evening. Ruts. All right. You have any objections to that? Any traditions you want to observe? Eliza almost laughed. Traditions. As if this were a real wedding, born of affection and hope. No, simple is fine. He nodded, satisfied. After we're married, things will change. You understand that? Her stomach tightened. I understand. I won't rush it, but we have a purpose here. The sooner we fulfill it, the sooner we can both move forward. So clinical. so cold. Eliza forced herself to nod. Of course. They finished the meal in heavy silence. Rowan helped clear the table again, then retreated to his study. Eliza washed the dishes, wiped down the kitchen, prepared everything for tomorrow's breakfast. The work was soothing, mindless. It kept her from thinking too much about Friday, about what would come after. When she finally went up to her room, she found herself standing in the hallway between her door and Rowan's. His was closed, a thin line of light visible underneath. She heard papers rustling, the scratch of a pen. Always working, always building. A man who'd learned that the only thing he could trust was what he could control. Eliza went into her room and closed the door. Thursday arrived cold and gray. Eliza wore her best dress, dark blue wool, worn but well-maintained, and pinned her hair up carefully. When she came downstairs, Rowan was already waiting, cleaned up more than usual, his hair combed back, wearing a jacket that looked like it had been tailored years ago and rarely worn since. He looked her over briefly. "You look presentable." "Thank you," she said dryly. The ride to town took 2 hours. They traveled in silence for most of it, the landscape rolling past in shades of brown and gray. The sky threatened snow but hadn't yet delivered. "Tell me about the preacher," Eliza said eventually, needing to fill the silence. "Reverend Michaels. He's all right. Comes through once a month to hold services, perform marriages, baptisms, funerals. Doesn't ask too many questions." "Does he know about our arrangement?" "No, and he doesn't need to. As far as anyone's concerned, this is a normal marriage." Eliza understood. Appearances mattered, especially in a place this small. People would talk enough as it was about Rowan Hale finally taking a wife. No need to give them more fuel. The town looked slightly less desolate in daylight, though not much. Rowan drove directly to the church, a small white building that had seen better days. Reverend Michaels met them at the door, a thin man in his 60s with kind eyes and a gentle manner. "Mr. Hale," he said warmly. "Good to see you. And this must be Miss Mercer." "Eliza Mercer," she confirmed, shaking his hand. "Wonderful, wonderful. Come in, come in. We'll go over the ceremony, make sure everything's in order for tomorrow." The next hour passed in a blur of details. The vows they'd recite, the paperwork that needed signing, the logistics of witnesses. Reverend Michaels would provide them if needed. Through it all, Rowan remained distant but polite, answering questions with minimal words. When they finished, Reverend Michaels smiled at them both. "I'm sure you'll be very happy together. Marriage is a sacred bond, a partnership of souls." "We appreciate your time, Reverend," Rowan interrupted firmly. "We should get to the seamstress before she closes." If Reverend Michaels noticed the coldness, he didn't show it. Of course. I'll see you both tomorrow at noon." Outside, Eliza turned to Rowan. "You didn't have to cut him off like that." "Didn't see the point in listening to romantic nonsense when we both know what this is." He started toward the wagon. "Seamstress is 2 buildings down." Eliza followed, biting back her irritation. He was right, of course, but his bluntness still scraped. Mrs. Potter's shop was small but tidy, filled with bolts of fabric and half-finished garments. The seamstress herself was a plump woman with sharp eyes and a measuring tape permanently draped around her neck. "Mr. Hale," she exclaimed when they entered. "I heard the news. So you're finally taking a bride. About time, I'd say." "Mrs. Potter, this is Eliza Mercer. She needs a wedding dress by tomorrow." Mrs. Potter's eyebrows shot up. "Tomorrow? My goodness, that doesn't give me much time." "I have several dresses already," Eliza interjected. "Perhaps we could just alter one." "Nonsense! Every bride deserves a proper dress." Mrs. Potter circled Eliza, assessing. "I have something that might work. Simple, elegant. It'll need taking in, but I can manage that tonight. Come, let's see." She disappeared into the back and returned with a dress of cream-colored silk, simple in design but beautifully made. Eliza's breath caught. It was the kind of dress she'd dreamed of as a girl, back when she still believed in fairy tales. "Try it on," Mrs. Potter urged. "Behind the screen there." Eliza changed, the silk cool against her skin. The dress fit reasonably well, though it needed adjustments at the waist and shoulders. She stepped out from behind the screen. Rowan, who'd been examining a saddle blanket with studied disinterest, looked up. Something shifted in his expression. surprise maybe, or something softer, but it vanished almost instantly. "It's fine," he said. "Make whatever alterations are needed. Put it on
This
my
story
account."
was posted on the
"It's
channel
beautiful,"
west of Betrayal.
Eliza said to
Please
Mrs.
do not
Potter.
repost it in any
"Thank
form.
you." "You're very welcome, dear. You'll make a lovely bride," Mrs. Potter winked. "Mr. Hale's a lucky man." Rowan made a non-committal sound and headed for the door. "I'll be at the general store. Meet me there when you're done." When he'd gone, Mrs. Potter clucked her tongue. "That man, hard as the land he works, but he's steady. I'll give him that. You could do worse." "I know," Eliza said quietly. Mrs. Potter measured and pinned in silence for a while, then said, "Word of advice, dear. Don't try to change him. He is what he is. But don't let him run roughshod over you either. Men like that, they respect strength. Show him you have a spine, and he'll treat you fair." Eliza met the woman's eyes in the mirror. "I have a spine." "Good. You'll need it." When Eliza finished at the seamstress, she found Rowan loading supplies into the wagon: flour, coffee, sugar, nails, rope. He worked with efficient precision, every movement purposeful. "Ready?" he asked without looking at her. "Yes." They started the long ride back to the ranch. The sky had darkened, and the first snowflakes began to fall, small, tentative, testing the air. "Storm's coming," Rowan said. "We'll make it back before it hits, but it'll be bad. First big snow of the season." Eliza watched the flakes swirl. "Is the house prepared?" "Always is. I don't leave things to chance." He glanced at her. "You nervous? About tomorrow?" The question surprised her. It was the first time he'd acknowledged that this might be difficult for her. "I'm not nervous," she lied. "Just aware of what's coming. It doesn't have to be awful. I'm not a brute." "I never said you were." "But you're thinking it." His jaw tightened. "Look, I know this isn't some romance novel. I know I'm not what women dream about. But I'll be respectful. I'll be careful." The word careful hung between them, loaded with meaning. Eliza felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I appreciate that," she managed. They didn't speak again for the rest of the journey. By the time they reached the ranch, snow was falling in earnest, thick and fast. Rowan unloaded the supplies quickly while Eliza hurried inside to start dinner. That night they ate in near silence, the tension between them thick as the storm outside. When they finished, Rowan stood but didn't immediately leave. "Tomorrow," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Tomorrow everything changes. I want you to know I don't take this lightly. The commitment. What it means." "Neither do I." He nodded once, sharp and final. "Good. Then we understand each other." He disappeared into his study. Eliza climbed the stairs to her room and sat on the bed that would be hers for only one more night. After tomorrow, everything would be different. She'd be a wife. She'd be bound to Rowan in ways both legal and physical. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt oddly calm. Maybe because fear required hope, and she'd given up on hope months ago. This was just survival. One day at a time. One decision after another. Eliza lay down and listened to the storm rage outside, carrying her old life away with every gust of wind. Friday dawned clear and brutally cold. Eliza woke before dawn, unable to sleep. She dressed carefully in her regular clothes. She'd change into the wedding dress at the church. Her hands were steady as she pinned her hair, though her stomach churned. Downstairs, Rowan was already up, pacing the kitchen with nervous energy that seemed foreign on him. He'd shaved carefully and wore his only suit, dark wool, a bit tight across the shoulders, clearly uncomfortable. "Coffee's ready," he said without preamble. They sat at the kitchen table, not eating, just drinking coffee in tense silence. Outside, the world was blanketed in white. The storm had left nearly a foot of snow. "Roads are passable," Rowan said. "I checked earlier. We should leave soon." "All right." Neither of them moved. Finally, Rowan stood abruptly. "Let's get this done." The drive to town took longer than usual, the wagon moving carefully through snow. Rowan drove with his usual competence, but Eliza could see the tension in his shoulders, the tight grip on the reins. At the church, Mrs. Potter was waiting with the dress. She helped Eliza change in the small vestry while Rowan paced outside. When Eliza emerged, Mrs. Potter made a satisfied sound. Perfect. You look absolutely perfect, dear. Eliza caught a glimpse of herself in a small mirror. The dress transformed her, made her look younger, softer. For a moment, she looked like a real bride. Then reality crashed back. Rowan appeared in the doorway. He froze when he saw her, his expression unreadable. You look... He stopped, cleared his throat. The dress is good. Mrs. Potter did well. Thank you. Reverend Michaels bustled in, all smiles and energy. Are we ready? Wonderful. Let's begin. The ceremony was mercifully brief. They stood before the altar, two witnesses, the shopkeeper and his wife, standing awkwardly to the side. Reverend Michaels spoke about love and commitment and partnership, words that felt hollow in the cold church. Do you, Rowan Hale, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Eliza Mercer, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Eliza's voice came out steady. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Rowan went very still. For a long moment, he just stared at her, something like panic flickering in his eyes. Then he leaned in and pressed his lips to hers. Brief, chaste, barely a kiss at all. His mouth was cold, his touch impersonal. When he pulled back, his face was carefully blank. It's done. They signed the papers. Accepted congratulations from Reverend Michaels and the witnesses. Mrs. Potter dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Through it all, Eliza felt like she was watching someone else's life, someone else's wedding. The ride back to the ranch was silent. Rowan's hands were tight on the reins, his jaw clenched. Eliza kept her hands folded in her lap, the wedding band, simple gold, heavy on her finger. Mrs. Rowan Hale, that was her name now. The name she'd wear for the rest of her life, tied to a man she barely knew, for a purpose that had nothing to do with love. When they reached the ranch, Rowan helped her down from the wagon, his hands impersonal on her waist. Several of the ranch hands had gathered, and they offered awkward congratulations. Thomas had even tied ribbons on the porch railing, a gesture that made something in Eliza's chest tighten unexpectedly. Thank you, she managed. That's very kind. Inside the house was warm. Mrs. Chen had left dinner prepared, a roast, potatoes, carrots, even a small cake. Evidence of celebration, though the occasion felt anything but celebratory. Rowan looked at the spread and something in his expression softened fractionally. That was thoughtful of her. They ate dinner in near silence, the weight of what came next hanging between them. Every scrape of silverware felt too loud. Every swallow of food felt like an effort. When they finished, Rowan stood abruptly. I have work to do in the study. Eliza looked at him incredulously. Work? Tonight? Papers that need reviewing. Won't take long. He disappeared before she could respond. Eliza sat alone in the dining room, anger beginning to replace numbness. It was their wedding night, however hollow the ceremony, however cold the arrangement, and he was hiding in his study like a coward. She cleaned up dinner, her movements sharp with frustration. Then she went upstairs, changed out of the wedding dress, and sat on her bed, except it wasn't her bed anymore. Tonight, she was supposed to go to Rowan's room. That was the agreement. That was the purpose of all this. An hour passed. Then 2. Eliza heard Rowan moving around downstairs, his footsteps pacing, restless. Finally, near midnight, she heard him climb the stairs. His footsteps paused outside her door. A soft knock. Come in, Eliza said. Rowan opened the door but stayed in the hallway. He'd changed into sleep clothes, simple cotton pants and a shirt. His hair was disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. He stopped, started again. I don't want to rush this. We had an agreement, Rowan. I know, but you just got here. You barely know me. I thought... He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I thought maybe we should wait. Get used to each other first. Eliza stood, crossing to him. That's not what you said when you wrote to me. You were very clear about the terms, about what you expected. I know what I said. His voice came out rough. But now that you're here, now that it's real, He met her eyes. I'm not a monster, Eliza. I won't force this. I'm not asking you to force anything. I'm asking you to honor the agreement we both made. She kept her voice steady. I didn't come all this way to be treated like a guest. I came to be your wife.
This story
In
was
every sense
posted
of
on
the
the
word.
channel west of Betrayal.
Something flickered in his
Please
eyes.
do not repost
Surprise,
it in any
maybe
form.
respect. You're certain? I'm certain. Rowan hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right, then, my room. Now. He turned and walked across the hall. Eliza followed, her heart pounding but her steps steady. His room was larger than hers, dominated by a massive bed. The furnishings were spare: a wardrobe, a chair, a washstand. No personal touches, no photographs, nothing that revealed the man who slept here. Rowan stood by the bed, looking more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. I'm not good at this. The gentle parts. I'm not asking for gentle. I'm asking for honest. He looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. Then he closed the distance between them, and everything changed. His kiss was nothing like the one at the altar. This was real, claiming, almost desperate. His hands came up to frame her face, and Eliza felt the calluses, the strength barely held in check. She kissed him back, pouring all her frustration and fear and determination into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Rowan's eyes were dark. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. What happened next was awkward, fumbling, nothing like the romanticized versions Eliza had imagined as a young girl. Rowan was careful but inexperienced with tenderness. Eliza was nervous but determined not to show it. They navigated each other's bodies with more efficiency than passion, finding their way through the mechanics of intimacy. But in the middle of it, something unexpected happened. Rowan's careful control slipped just for a moment, and Eliza saw the man beneath the armor, raw, vulnerable, desperate for connection even as he denied needing it. And in that moment, she stopped thinking of this as a transaction and recognized it for what it really was. Two lonely people reaching for each other in the dark. When it was over, Rowan rolled onto his back, breathing hard. Eliza lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what they'd just done settle over her. Are you all right? Rowan asked quietly. I'm fine. I didn't hurt you? No. Silence stretched between them. Eliza waited for him to tell her to go back to her room to restore the distance. Instead, he reached out and took her hand, his grip firm and warm. You can stay, he said roughly. If you want. You don't have to, but you can. Eliza looked at their joined hands, hers small and pale, his large and scarred. All right. They lay there in the darkness, not speaking, not moving apart. Outside, the wind picked up again, rattling the windows. The ranch settled around them with creaks and groans. And Eliza realized that despite everything, the coldness, the arrangement, the absence of love, she didn't feel quite as hollow as she had before. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all either of them could hope for. She closed her eyes and let herself drift toward sleep, still holding the hand of the stranger who was now her husband. The first week passed in a blur of routine and awkward silences. Eliza woke each morning before dawn, dressed in the cold darkness, and went downstairs to make coffee. Rowan would already be moving around, preparing for the day's work. They'd eat breakfast together, mostly in silence, and then he'd disappear into the endless demands of the ranch. Eliza would spend her days managing the house, learning its rhythms, trying to carve out a space for herself in a life that still felt borrowed. Nights were different. Rowan came to her room, or she went to his, the arrangement never quite settled, and they'd navigate the physical requirements of their agreement with growing familiarity but little warmth. It wasn't terrible. Rowan kept his word about being careful, and sometimes Eliza caught glimpses of something more beneath his control. But afterward, he'd retreat into himself, the walls slamming back into place. By the end of the first week, a pattern had emerged. They were polite strangers sharing a house and a bed, bound by contract but separated by everything that mattered. It was exactly what Eliza had expected. So why did it leave her feeling so empty? On the 8th day, she decided to push back. Rowan came in for dinner at 7, as always, and found the table empty. He stood in the dining room, confusion crossing his face. Eliza? She appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Dinner's not ready yet. The roast needed more time. His jaw tightened. I eat at 7, you know that. And sometimes things take longer than planned. You'll have to wait. Something flashed in his eyes. Irritation, maybe anger. But he just nodded stiffly and sat down. Fine, I'll wait. Eliza returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding. It was a small rebellion, pointless even. But she needed to know if she was allowed to exist outside the rigid boxes he'd created, or if she was just another piece of property to be managed and controlled. When she finally brought out the food 20 minutes later, Rowan ate without comment. But she could feel his tension, the way he kept glancing at her like he was trying to figure out what game she was playing. After dinner, instead of retreating to his study as usual, he helped her clear the table. They worked in silence, moving around each other in the small kitchen. When the dishes were washed and put away, Rowan finally spoke. You did that on purpose. Did what? Made me wait, tested me. Eliza met his gaze. Maybe I did. Why? Because I needed to know if I'm allowed to be human here, or if I'm just supposed to be another one of your systems that runs on schedule. Rowan's expression hardened. I never said you couldn't be human. You didn't have to say it. You show it every day. Wake at 5, coffee at 5:30, breakfast at 6, work until 7, dinner, study, bed, everything on schedule, everything predictable. Where exactly do I fit in this machine you've built? You fit where we agreed you'd fit, as my wife, the mother of my children. A role, not a person. What the hell do you want from me, Eliza? The words came out sharp, frustrated. I'm giving you exactly what I promised. Security, comfort, respect. That's more than most women get. You're right. It is more than most women get, and I'm grateful for it. She crossed her arms. But I'm not going to disappear into the furniture. I'm not going to be quiet and convenient and forgettable. If we're going to live in this house together, raise a child together, you're going to have to accept that I have thoughts and opinions and the occasional inconvenient need to be treated like I matter. Rowan stared at her, his chest rising and falling. For a moment, she thought he might explode, order her to pack her things, send her back to Philadelphia. Instead, he let out a harsh breath. Fine. You matter. You happy now? Not particularly, but it's a start. He turned to leave, then stopped at the doorway. Without looking back, he said, The roast was good. Better than when it's on time, actually. More tender. Then he disappeared into his study, leaving Eliza alone in the kitchen with something that felt dangerously close to a smile tugging at her lips. The next morning, Rowan came down to breakfast and found Eliza already at the table, reading one of the books from his parlor shelf. She'd made coffee and laid out bread and butter, but no hot meal. He paused in the doorway. No eggs? I'm not particularly hungry this morning, but there's bread if you want it. She could see him wrestling with it, the disruption to routine, the casual way she'd just changed things without asking. Finally, he poured himself coffee and sat down across from her. What are you reading? Eliza showed him the cover, a treatise on cattle breeding. Found it on your shelf. It's actually quite interesting. I had no idea there was so much science involved in breeding livestock. Most people don't. He broke off a piece of bread. You really find that interesting, or are you just making conversation? I really find it interesting. My father used to say that everything is interesting if you look at it closely enough. Your father sounds like he was a smart man. He was, just not smart enough to save any money before he died. The bitterness slipped out before she could stop it. Rowan studied her over his coffee cup. That why you ended up teaching? Money trouble? Among other reasons, it was one of the few respectable options for an unmarried woman. Teaching or governess work or... She gestured vaguely. This. Marrying a stranger for security. Yes. He was quiet for a moment. You ever regret it? Answering my advertisement? Eliza considered the question honestly. Ask me again in a year. Right now I'm still figuring out what I chose. Something shifted in his expression, not quite softening, but acknowledging. Fair enough. They finished breakfast in companionable silence. When Rowan stood to leave, he paused. If you're interested in the ranch operations, you could come out sometime. See how things work. Most of it's boring as hell, but... He shrugged. You might find parts of it interesting. It was the first time he'd invited her into his world. Eliza felt something warm unfurl in her chest. "I'd like that." He nodded and left. Through the window,
This
she
story
watched
was
him stride
posted on
toward
the
the
channel
barn,
west
already
of
barking
Betrayal.
orders at the hands.
Please do not
But there
repost
was something
it in
different
any
in his
form.
posture. Less rigid, maybe. Or maybe she was just imagining it. 2 days later, Rowan made good on his offer. "Get dressed warm," he said at breakfast. "You're coming with me this morning." Eliza bundled into her heaviest coat and followed him outside. The early December air bit at her face, sharp and clean. Rowan led her to the barn where several of the hands were already working. "This is the heart of everything," Rowan said, gesturing around the barn. "Horses, equipment, feed storage. If this fails, the whole operation fails." He walked her through the daily routines, feeding schedules, equipment maintenance, the careful records he kept of every animal, every expense, every detail. His voice changed when he talked about the ranch. The hard edges softened slightly, replaced by something that looked almost like passion. "Why cattle?" Eliza asked as they stood watching the herd in the distance. "Why not horses or sheep or something else?" Cattle made sense for the land, hardy enough to survive the winters, profitable enough to build on. My father ran sheep for a while, lost most of them in one bad winter. Cattle are tougher. And the market's better if you know what you're doing. "And you know what you're doing." "Damn right I do." He glanced at her. "Took me years to figure it out. Made a lot of mistakes. Lost money I couldn't afford to lose. But I learned." "What was the worst mistake?" Rowan's jaw tightened. "Trusting the wrong person." The way he said it made Eliza remember what Mrs. Chen had mentioned, a woman, long ago, who'd left. She wanted to ask, but something in his expression warned her off. They spent the next hour touring the property. Rowan showed her the water sources, the grazing rotation system, the fences that needed repair before winter set in fully. He talked like he was teaching, explaining not just what, but why. Eliza found herself genuinely interested, asking questions, offering observations. At one point, she noticed something in the distance, a section of fence that looked newer than the rest. "What happened there?" Rowan followed her gaze. "Storm damage 2 years ago. Whole section came down. Lost about 30 head of cattle before we could get them back." "That must have been devastating." "It was expensive, but you rebuild. That's what you do out here. Something breaks, you fix it. Something fails, you try again. Stopping isn't an option." Eliza heard the philosophy behind the words, the same rigid determination that governed everything he did. Never quit. Never rest. Never let anything threaten what you've built. "Don't you ever want to just stop?" she asked. "Take a day off, go into town for something other than supplies, do something that's not about the ranch?" Rowan looked at her like she'd suggested burning the place down. "Why would I do that?" "Because life is more than work." "Not out here it isn't. Out here, if you're not working, you're dying. That's just how it is." "That's how you've chosen to make it," Eliza corrected gently. "It doesn't have to be that way." His expression closed off. "You don't understand. You haven't been here long enough." "Then help me understand." But he just shook his head and started walking back toward the house. "We should get back. I've got work to do." Eliza followed, frustration simmering. Every time she thought she was getting somewhere with him, he'd slam the door shut, like he was afraid of what might happen if he let her too close. That night, Rowan came to her room as usual, but instead of the mechanical intimacy they'd fallen into, Eliza stopped him. "Wait." He froze, concern flashing across his face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I just—" She sat on the edge of the bed. "Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" Rowan looked profoundly uncomfortable. "About what?" "Anything. Everything. I don't know." She gestured at the space between them. "We do this every night, but we barely know each other. Don't you find that strange?" "We know enough." "Do we? I don't know your favorite color, or what you like to do when you're not working, or what makes you laugh. You don't know any of those things about me either. What does that matter? We're not—" He stopped himself. "We're not what? Friends? Companions? We're married, Rowan. We're trying to create a child together. Doesn't it matter at all that we know each other?" He ran a hand through his hair, agitated. "I don't know how to do this. The talking, the sharing. I'm not built for it. Everyone's built for it. You've just convinced yourself you're not. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me. Tell me why you're so afraid of letting anyone close." The words hung in the air between them. Rowan's face went hard, shutting down completely. "I'm not doing this. I'm not going to stand here and be analyzed like one of your school projects." He turned toward the door. Her name was Sarah. Rowan stopped, his back rigid. Eliza pressed on, even though her heart was pounding. "Mrs. Chen mentioned her, the woman who left. That's why you're like this, isn't it? She hurt you, and you decided it was easier to not feel anything than to risk it again." Rowan spun around, fury blazing in his eyes. "You don't know a damn thing about it. So tell me, help me understand why you're so determined to keep everyone at arm's length." "Because it's safer!" The words exploded out of him. "Because caring about people, trusting them, letting them in, it only leads to pain. Sarah taught me that. My father taught me that. Everyone I've ever trusted has either betrayed me or died. So yes, I keep people at arm's length. It's the only way to survive." The raw pain in his voice hit Eliza like a physical blow. This was the wound Mrs. Chen had hinted at, deep and still bleeding after all these years. "What happened with Sarah?" she asked quietly. Rowan's hands clenched into fists. "She was the foreman's daughter. We were going to get married. I was 22, stupid, thought I was in love. Spent 2 years courting her, making plans, working myself half to death to build something worth offering her. Then one day she ran off with a traveling salesman, left a note saying she couldn't stand the isolation, the hard work, the brutal winters. Said I loved the ranch more than I'd ever love her." "Rowan?" "She was right. I did love the ranch more. Because the ranch never lied to me, never promised one thing and delivered another. The land doesn't betray you. If you work hard, if you're smart, it gives back. People?" He laughed bitterly. "People take everything you give them and leave you with nothing." Eliza stood, crossing to him. "Not everyone?" "Yes, everyone. My father drank himself to death and left me with debts that should have buried me. Sarah left when things got hard. The few friends I had growing up either moved away or decided ranching wasn't worth the effort. Everyone leaves. Everyone fails you eventually. I'm still here. For now. Until something better comes along, or you decide this life isn't what you wanted. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Eliza. I learned that a long time ago." They stood facing each other, the space between them charged with tension. Eliza could see the pain beneath his anger, the fear beneath his control. This was a man who'd been abandoned so many times he'd turned himself into a fortress. "I'm not Sarah," she said firmly, "and I'm not your father. I made a commitment, and I keep my commitments, even when they're hard, even when they're not what I dreamed of. I'm here, Rowan, and I'm not leaving." He searched her face, looking for the lie, the weakness, the inevitable betrayal. "How can you promise that?" "Because I don't have anywhere else to go. Because this is my life now too. Because whether you want to admit it or not, we need each other." She reached out, placing her hand on his chest. "You don't have to love me. You don't even have to like me. But you could try trusting me, just a little." Rowan's hand came up to cover hers, his grip tight. "I don't know if I can." "Try anyway." They stood like that for a long moment, something fragile and new forming between them. Then Rowan pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, and Eliza felt him shake with the effort of holding something back. Tears, maybe, or words he didn't know how to say. When they came together that night, it was different, slower, more deliberate. Rowan touched her like he was trying to memorize her, like he was testing whether she was real, and afterward, instead of retreating to his side of the bed, he pulled her close and held her through the night. It wasn't love, but it was something, and for now, that was enough. The next few weeks brought a subtle shift in the household. Rowan still worked brutally long hours, but he started coming in for lunch occasionally, sitting at the kitchen table while Eliza prepared simple meals. They'd talk, awkward, halting conversations at first, but gradually becoming easier. He told her about the ranch operations, the challenges of the season, his plans for expansion. She told him about books she was reading, observations about the landscape, small stories from her teaching days. Mrs. Chen noticed the change. "You're good for him," she said one afternoon while they were preparing bread dough. "He is less tight, like a rope that was too tense now has some slack." "I don't know if I'm good for him. We're just trying to coexist." Mrs. Chen smiled knowingly. "That is how it starts.
This story
My
was
husband and
posted
I,
on the
we
channel
were
west
arranged
of
marriage
Betrayal.
too.
Please do
First
not
year,
repost
very
it
difficult.
in any form.
But over time, we built something real. Not the romance from poems, but something stronger. Partnership, trust. How long did it take to build that trust? Many years. But the first step is the hardest. You have taken first step. He has taken first step. That is progress. Eliza wanted to believe it. Some days she thought maybe Mrs. Chen was right. Rowan was slowly opening up, sharing pieces of himself in careful increments. He'd started asking her opinion on things, small things at first, like what supplies to order, but gradually bigger questions about ranch decisions. Other days, the walls would slam back up without warning. Something would trigger him, a hand quitting without notice, a equipment failure, a letter from the bank. And he'd retreat into cold efficiency, shutting Eliza out completely. One evening in late December, she found him in his study, staring at papers spread across his desk. His expression was grim. "What's wrong?" she asked from the doorway. "Nothing, just accounts." "Rowan, I can see your face. What's wrong?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then reluctantly, "Winter's been harder than expected. Feed costs are up. I'm going to have to sell more cattle than I wanted to this spring to stay solvent." Eliza entered the study, the first time she'd crossed that threshold. Rowan didn't stop her. She looked at the papers, the careful columns of numbers, the projections for next year. "How bad is it?" "Not bad, just tighter than I like. I prefer having more cushion, more room for error." "Can I help somehow?" He laughed without humor. "Unless you've got a few $1,000s hidden away, no." "I could be more careful with household expenses. Cut back where—" "No." His voice was firm. "The house runs on what it needs. I won't have you going without because of ranch finances. That's my problem to solve." "We're married, Rowan. Your problems are my problems now." "That's not how this works." "Then how does it work? You keep everything separate, every burden on your shoulders alone, until you collapse under the weight?" "I've been handling things fine on my own for 15 years. "Have you?" Eliza challenged. "Or have you just been surviving, never actually living?" Rowan's jaw clenched. "You're overstepping." "Maybe I am. But someone needs to tell you that you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. You have help now, whether you want it or not." They locked eyes, tension crackling between them. Finally, Rowan looked away. "I'll think about it." It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. Eliza took what she could get. Christmas arrived with little fanfare. Eliza had wanted to do something special, decorate the house, prepare a feast, mark the occasion somehow. But Rowan had made it clear he didn't celebrate holidays. "Too much work to do," he'd said flatly. "Can't afford to take time off for sentiment." Still, Eliza couldn't let the day pass without acknowledgement. On Christmas morning, she woke early and prepared a special breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, even coffee cake she'd baked the night before. When Rowan came down, he stopped at the sight of the spread. "What's all this?" "Breakfast. It's Christmas." "I told you I know what you told me. Humor me anyway." He looked ready to argue, then seemed to think better of it. He sat down, and they ate together while snow fell softly outside. Eliza had wrapped a small gift, a new leather journal she'd ordered from Mrs. Potter, thinking Rowan could use it for his ranch records. She set it beside his plate. "What's this?" "A gift. Open it." Rowan unwrapped the package slowly, like he'd forgotten how. When he saw the journal, something crossed his face. Surprise, then something softer. This is good quality. Must have been expensive." "I saved from the household money. I wanted to get you something useful." He ran his hand over the leather cover. "Thank you, I didn't get you anything. I didn't expect you to." "Still, I should have." He stood abruptly. "Wait here." He disappeared into his study and returned a few minutes later with a small wooden box. "It's not much. Was my mother's. Thought you might want it." Eliza opened the box to find a simple silver locket inside, slightly tarnished, but beautiful. Rowan, I can't take your mother's. She's been dead 20 years. It's just been sitting in a drawer. He shifted uncomfortably. Seems like it should go to someone who'll wear it. Eliza's throat tightened. Thank you. It's lovely. She fastened it around her neck, and Rowan watched with an expression she couldn't quite read. For a moment they just stood there, the weight of the gesture hanging between them. Merry Christmas, Eliza, he said quietly. Merry Christmas, Rowan. That night, when he came to her room, something had shifted again. His touches were gentler, more searching. Afterward, he didn't let go, keeping her pulled close against his chest. I'm trying, he whispered into her hair. I know I'm not good at this, but I'm trying. Eliza's hand found his. I know, so am I. January brought the worst of winter. Snow piled high around the ranch buildings. Temperatures plummeted to dangerous lows. The work became brutal, breaking ice in water troughs, ensuring cattle had enough feed, repairing damage from storms. Rowan worked himself nearly to exhaustion, coming in each night haggard and frozen. One evening, he didn't come in at all. 7 o'clock passed, then 8. Eliza kept dinner warm, worry gnawing at her. At 9, she heard commotion outside, men's voices, urgent and sharp. She rushed to the door and found Thomas and 2 other hands carrying Rowan between them. His face was gray, his clothes soaked. What happened? Fell through ice, Thomas panted. We got him out quick, but he's half frozen. They carried him upstairs. Eliza's training kicked in. Years of caring for her father had taught her how to handle emergencies. She ordered the men to get blankets, hot water, anything to warm him. They stripped off his wet clothes, wrapped him in quilts, built up the fire until the room was stifling. Rowan's teeth chattered violently. His skin was deathly pale, lips tinged blue. Eliza climbed into the bed beside him, using her own body heat to warm him, rubbing his arms and chest to get blood flowing. Stupid, he muttered through chattering teeth. Stupid. Should have known. Ice was thin. Shh. Don't talk. Just get warm. The hands brought hot broth, which Eliza coaxed Rowan to drink. Slowly, painfully, color began returning to his face. His shivering gradually eased. After an hour, he finally seemed stable. Thomas checked on them from the doorway. He going to be all right, ma'am? I think so. Thank you for getting him out. Boss would have done the same for any of us. He hesitated. He's lucky to have you, Mrs. Hale. Not many women would know what to do. When they were alone, Rowan looked at her with something like shame. I was careless. The ice looked solid, but I should have tested it first. One of the cattle had wandered onto the pond, and I just went after it without thinking. You could have died. I didn't. But you could have. And for what? 1 cow? That 1 cow is worth money we can't afford to lose. Eliza felt anger rise, hot and fierce. Is it worth your life? Because that's what you risked tonight. Your life for an animal. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're so focused on the ranch, on building and protecting and never failing, that you'll risk everything, including yourself, to keep it running. But what's the point of all this if you're dead, Rowan? The point is to leave something behind, something that matters. You already matter. You matter to the men who work for you. You matter to Mrs. Chen and her husband. You matter to... She stopped, the words catching in her throat. To who? His eyes were intense on hers. To me, she finished quietly. You matter to me. Rowan stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Why? Because despite everything, despite the coldness and the walls and the stubborn refusal to let anyone in, you're a good man. You work hard. You keep your word. You're trying, even when it's difficult. That matters. His hand came up to touch her face, wonderingly. I don't deserve you. That's not for you to decide. He pulled her down into a kiss that was different from all the others, desperate, grateful, almost reverent. And when they came together that night, it felt less like obligation and more like choice, like 2 people reaching for each other because they wanted to, not because a contract said they should. Afterward, Rowan held her close, his voice rough. If something had happened tonight, if I died under that ice, you would have been all right. The ranch, everything. It's in my will. It would have gone to you. I don't want the ranch. I want you alive. Why? Because I'm starting to care about you, you stubborn fool, and that terrifies me as much as it probably terrifies you. Rowan was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm starting to care about you too. Don't know what to do with that. Neither do I.
This
They
story
lay
was
there in the
posted on the
darkness,
channel
wrapped around
west
each
of
other,
Betrayal.
both of them terrified
Please
of
do
this
not
fragile
repost
thing
it
growing
in any
between them.
form.
Neither quite ready to name it, neither quite ready to trust it, but it was there, undeniable and growing stronger every day. Outside, the wind howled and snow continued to fall. Inside, two people who'd started as strangers slowly became something more. February brought a thaw that turned the world to mud. Water ran in rivulets down every slope, pooled in low spots, turned the roads into treacherous bogs. The ranch became a mess of churned earth and melting snow. Rowan and his men worked constantly to keep the cattle from getting bogged down, to repair fences weakened by winter's assault, to manage the chaos that came with spring's early arrival. Eliza stood at the kitchen window one morning, watching Rowan stride through the mud like it was nothing, his boots caked in it, his coat splattered. He stopped to help one of the younger hands lift a beam, both of them straining under the weight. Even from a distance, she could see the set of his shoulders, the determination in every movement. 3 months. She'd been here 3 months, and everything had changed. She touched the locket at her throat, wore it every day now, a talisman of something she still couldn't name. Her monthly courses had come twice since the wedding, each time bringing a complicated mix of relief and disappointment. Relief because she wasn't ready yet for a child, for that ultimate binding. Disappointment because she knew what it meant to Rowan, even if he tried to hide it. "Give it time," Mrs. Chen had said when Eliza confided in her. "These things happen when they happen. Stress, worry, they make it harder. You're both still learning each other." Learning. That was one word for it. Eliza felt like she was trying to read a book written in a language she barely understood, where every page revealed something new and often contradictory. Rowan could be tender one moment and distant the next. He'd share pieces of himself, then retreat for days. Progress came in inches, then disappeared in miles. The door banged open. Rowan came in, mud to his knees, exhaustion written across his face. "Coffee hot?" he asked. "Always." She poured him a cup, which he downed in 3 long gulps. "You need to eat something." "Don't have time. Got a section of fence down near the north pasture. If we don't get it fixed today, we'll lose cattle." "Rowan, you barely slept last night. You've been working since before dawn. You need to rest." "I'll rest when the work's done." "The work's never done. That's the whole problem." He set down the cup with more force than necessary. "What do you want me to do, Eliza? Take a day off while everything falls apart?" "I want you to take care of yourself. Is that so unreasonable?" "Right now? Yes." He grabbed a piece of bread from the counter, shoving it in his pocket. "I'll be back when I'm back." He was gone before she could respond, the door slamming behind him. Eliza stood in the sudden silence, frustration and worry warring inside her. This was the pattern. He'd open up, let her in, then something would happen and the walls would come back up. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. She was tired of it. That evening, when Rowan finally came in at 9 instead of 7, covered in mud and sweat and exhaustion, Eliza was waiting. "Where's dinner?" he asked, looking at the empty table. "I didn't make any." He stopped, confusion crossing his face. "What?" "You didn't show up at 7. You didn't send word you'd be late, so I didn't make dinner." "I was working. You know that." "I know you're always working. What I don't know is whether I'm your wife or just the woman who cooks and cleans and warms your bed when it's convenient." Rowan's expression hardened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You shut me out whenever things get hard. You won't let me help, won't let me share the burden. I'm just supposed to wait around until you decide to remember I exist. I've got 3,000 acres to manage, Eliza. Forgive me if I don't have time to check in every 5 minutes. I'm not asking for every 5 minutes. I'm asking for basic consideration. For you to treat me like I matter, not just when you want something from me. You do matter. Then act like it." The words came out sharper than she intended, but she didn't take them back. "I'm trying, Rowan. Every day I'm trying to build something here with you, but I can't do it alone. You have to meet me halfway." "I don't know how." The admission burst out of him, raw and honest. I don't know how to do this. How to let someone in. How to balance the ranch and everything else. I'm doing the best I can, and it's never enough. The anger drained out of Eliza, replaced by something softer. She crossed to him, mud and all, and took his hands. Your best doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. I don't need you to be different. I just need you to stop pushing me away every time you're scared. I'm not scared. Liar? She said it gently. You're terrified. Of caring. Of needing someone. Of what it might mean if you actually let yourself feel something. Rowan pulled his hands away, turning toward the window. The darkness outside reflected his face back at him, haggard, lined with exhaustion and something deeper. After Sarah left, he said quietly, I swore I'd never need anyone again. That I'd build something so solid, so strong, that I'd never have to depend on another person. The ranch was supposed to be enough. Work was supposed to be enough. But it's not. No, it's not. He turned back to her. You scare the hell out of me, Eliza. Every day you scare me more. Because I'm starting to need you, and need makes you vulnerable. Need makes you weak. Need makes you human. I can't afford to be human. Not out here. Human gets you killed or broke or destroyed. Eliza stepped closer. You're already human, Rowan. You're just trying very hard to pretend you're not. And it's exhausting you. It's exhausting both of us. They stood facing each other in the quiet kitchen, years of fear and hurt hanging between them. Finally, Rowan let out a long breath. I don't want to fight with you. Then stop running from me. I'll try. That's all I can promise. I'll try. It wasn't everything, but it was something. Eliza reached up and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble, the tension in his jaw. Go clean up. I'll make you something to eat. Relief flickered across his expression. Thank you. While he washed upstairs, Eliza threw together a quick meal, leftover stew, bread, cheese. When Rowan came back down, clean and wearing fresh clothes, some of the exhaustion had lifted from his face. They ate in silence, but it was a different kind of silence than before. Not empty or angry, just quiet. The fence is fixed, Rowan said eventually. North Pasture's secure again. Good. Thomas did most of the heavy lifting. Kid's getting stronger. Might make him assistant foreman if he keeps it up. He seems like a good worker. He is. Loyal, too. That matters more than skill sometimes. Eliza took a chance. Tell me about the assistant foreman you had before. The one whose daughter was Sarah. Rowan went very still. For a moment, she thought he'd shut down completely. Then, slowly, he started talking. Bill Patterson, best foreman I ever had. Taught me half of what I know about ranching. His daughter Sarah was 17 when I met her. I was 22, thought I had the world figured out. He stared into his coffee. She was beautiful, smart, quick to laugh. I fell hard the way young men do, stupid and complete. What happened? I courted her for 2 years. Did everything right. Asked her father's permission, saved money, built up the ranch so I could support a wife. We were going to get married that spring. His jaw tightened. Then a salesman came through town. Smooth talker, fancy clothes, promised Sarah a life in San Francisco, parties and theater and everything Montana couldn't give her. And she left. Didn't even say goodbye to my face. Just left a note. Said she couldn't marry someone who loved dirt and cattle more than people. Said she deserved better than a lifetime of hard work and isolation. He laughed bitterly. Maybe she was right. She was wrong, Eliza said firmly. You're not incapable of love. You're just scared of it. Same thing, in the end. No, it's not. She reached across the table, taking his hand. Being scared means you know what's at stake. It means you care enough to be afraid of losing it. Rowan's fingers tightened around hers. What if I can't do this? What if I can't be what you need? What do I need, Rowan? He looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time since she'd arrived. I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know what you need, what you want. You say you want honesty, but every time I give it to you, it feels like I'm carving pieces off myself. That's because you've spent so long protecting yourself that being open feels like dying. But it's not dying, it's living. She squeezed his hand. I need you to stop treating me like I'm going to vanish the moment things get hard. I need you to trust that I'm here, that I'm staying, and I need you to let yourself want things beyond the ranch. Like what? Like happiness, like connection, like a real marriage, not just an arrangement.
This story was posted
words
on the
hung in the
channel
air
West
between
of
them.
Betrayal.
Rowan's
Please
expression
do not
was torn,
repost it in any form.
wanting and fear fighting for dominance. I don't know if I can, he admitted. Then we'll figure it out together. But you have to stop pushing me away. He was quiet for a long time. Then, okay. Okay? I'll try, really try. Not just say the words, but actually, he gestured helplessly. Whatever that looks like. It was the most vulnerable she'd ever seen him. Eliza stood, came around the table, and pulled him into an embrace. He stiffened for a moment, then his arms came around her, holding tight. Thank you, she whispered. That night, everything changed. Rowan came to her room, as he had every night since the wedding. But instead of the practiced routine they'd fallen into, he paused in the doorway. Can I stay with you tonight? Just stay? Eliza pulled back the covers in answer. He climbed in beside her, and they lay facing each other in the lamplight. Neither of them moved to begin the usual progression. They just looked at each other. I'm bad at this, Rowan said quietly. The talking, the sharing. Sarah used to complain about it constantly, said I was like talking to a fence post. You're doing fine right now. Because I'm terrified you'll give up on me if I don't. I'm not giving up on you. I'm stubborn, remember? It's one of my less attractive qualities. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It's actually one of the things I like about you. You don't back down. What else do you like about me? The question seemed to surprise him. He considered it seriously, his eyes searching her face. You're smart. Not just book learning, though you've got plenty of that. You see things, understand things without being told. His hand came up to touch her hair. You're stronger than you look. Most women would have gotten back on that train after the first week. But you stayed. You fought. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Maybe not. But you could have made yourself small and invisible. Instead, you pushed back, made me see you. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I like that you read cattle breeding books. I like that you tell me when I'm being an ass. I like that you're not afraid of hard work. Eliza's throat tightened. Those aren't the kind of things men usually notice. I'm not most men. No, you're really not. She kissed him, and it was different from all the other kisses. Softer, slower, less about obligation or need and more about choice, about wanting to be close to this difficult, damaged man who was trying so hard to open up. When they came together, it felt like a conversation they'd been trying to have for months, bodies saying what words couldn't. Afterward, Rowan didn't retreat to his side of the bed. He pulled her close, her back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her. What do you want, Eliza Quas? He asked into the darkness. Not what you settled for. What do you actually want? She was quiet, thinking. I want to matter. Not just as a function or a role, but as a person. I want to build something real, not perfect, but honest. I want to wake up someday and not feel like I'm just surviving. Is that what you feel like now? Like you're surviving? Sometimes. Other times I feel like I'm actually living. It depends on the day, on whether you're letting me in or shutting me out. Rowan was silent for a long moment, then, I want to let you in. All the way in. I just don't know how to do it without falling apart. Maybe falling apart isn't the worst thing that could happen. It feels like it. I know. She turned in his arms to face him.
This story
But
was
I'll be here to
posted
help
on the
pick up the
channel
pieces.
West of Betrayal.
That's what this is
Please
supposed
do not
to be, isn't it?
repost it in any
Partnership.
form.
Sharing the burden. I've never had a partner, just employees and obligations. You have one now, whether you like it or not. He kissed her forehead. I'm starting to like it. That's what scares me. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time since the wedding, Eliza felt like maybe they were actually building toward something real. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Eliza was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when she heard horses approaching. She looked out the window to see a well-dressed man on a fine horse, accompanied by two others. Rowan emerged from the barn, his posture immediately defensive. Eliza dried her hands and went to the door, watching the exchange. The visitor dismounted, offering his hand. Rowan shook it stiffly. They talked for several minutes, the visitor gesturing expansively while Rowan remained still and closed. Finally, Rowan nodded toward the house, and both men started walking toward it. "Eliza," Rowan called as they approached. "This is Charles Brennan. He owns the ranch to the south. Brennan, this is my wife Eliza." Brennan swept off his hat with exaggerated courtesy. "Mrs. Hale, a pleasure. I'd heard Rowan had finally taken a bride, but the reports didn't do you justice." Everything about the man set Eliza's teeth on edge. The too smooth smile, the appraising way he looked at her, the hint of mockery beneath the politeness. "Mr. Brennan, would you like coffee?" "That would be most kind." They settled in the parlor, an awkward arrangement. Rowan sat rigid, clearly unhappy about the visit. Brennan lounged comfortably, like he owned the place. "I'll get straight to the point," Brennan said. "I'm expanding my operations, and your land would be perfect for my needs. I'm prepared to make you a very generous offer, Rowan, more than fair market value." Rowan's expression went flat. "The ranch isn't for sale. Hear me out. $25,000 cash. You could buy land elsewhere, start fresh without all the debt your father left you." I said no. "Think about it. You've worked yourself half to death building this place. Don't you want something easier? Something that doesn't require breaking your back every day?" "I like my life just fine." Brennan's smile sharpened. "Do you? Because from what I hear, you've been struggling. Winter was hard, feed costs up. You had to sell off more cattle than you wanted. How long before you can't make the payments? Before the bank comes calling?" Rowan stood. "This conversation is over. The ranch isn't for sale. Not now, not ever." "Everything's for sale, Rowan. It's just a matter of price." Brennan stood as well, his eyes sliding to Eliza. "Or perhaps there are other things you value more now. New wife, new responsibilities. A man's priorities change when he has someone to protect." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Rowan's hands clenched into fists. "Get off my land, Brennan." "I'm just saying, accidents happen out here. Fences break, cattle wander. Would be a shame if something happened to your operation, especially with a new bride to worry about." Rowan moved fast, grabbing Brennan by the front of his coat. "You threatening me?" "Not at all. Just making conversation." Brennan's smile never wavered. "Think about my offer, Rowan. It's good for another month. After that, the price goes down. Way down." Rowan shoved him toward the door. "Out. Now." Brennan adjusted his coat, unruffled. "Mrs. Hale, it was a pleasure. I do hope we meet again under better circumstances." He left with his men, riding away at a leisurely pace. Rowan stood on the porch, watching until they disappeared. When he came back inside, his face was thunderous. "How long has he been trying to buy the ranch?" Eliza asked. 2 years. He owns everything south of here, wants to expand north. I'm the only thing standing in his way." Rowan paced. "He's tried money, intimidation, everything. Now he's threatening you." "I'm not afraid of him." "You should be. Brennan doesn't make idle threats. If he thinks he can get to me through you, he will." "Then we deal with it together." "No, I deal with it. You stay safe." Eliza stood, blocking his pacing. "We're past that, Rowan. You don't get to shut me out every time something dangerous happens. If Brennan's a threat to this ranch, he's a threat to both of us. We handle it together. But I can't protect you and the ranch at the same time." "I don't need protecting. I need to be treated like a partner." They locked eyes, both stubborn, both refusing to back down. Finally, Rowan let out a harsh breath. "Fine, but you don't go anywhere alone. And if Brennan or his men show up again, you come get me immediately. Understood?" "Understood." Over the next week, the tension on the ranch ratcheted up. Rowan doubled the night watches, had the hands check the fences twice daily, kept closer watch on the cattle. Nothing happened, but the threat hung over everything. Then, one night, fire broke out in the hay barn. Eliza woke to shouting and the smell of smoke. She rushed to the window and saw flames leaping from the barn roof, men running with buckets. She dressed quickly and ran outside. The scene was chaos. The hands formed a bucket brigade from the well, desperately trying to contain the blaze. Rowan was in the middle of it, his face black with soot, shouting orders. The heat was intense, even from a distance. "Get the horses out," Rowan yelled, "and the equipment! Move!" Men rushed into the barn, emerging with terrified horses and whatever tools they could grab. The fire roared higher, consuming dry hay with
This story was
terrifying
posted
speed.
on the channel west
Eliza
of the
joined the
trail.
bucket brigade,
Please
passing
do not
water until her
repost
arms
it in
ached,
any
her
form.
dress soaked and filthy. It took 2 hours to get the fire under control. By then, half the barn was gone, along with most of the winter hay stores and several pieces of expensive equipment. The hands collapsed on the ground, exhausted and defeated. Rowan stood staring at the smoldering ruins, his expression unreadable. Eliza approached cautiously. "Rowan?" It was Set. His voice was flat, emotionless. Thomas found the accelerant. Someone poured kerosene along the west wall and lit it. "Brennan." "Can't prove it, but yeah, Brennan." He turned to her, and she saw the fury beneath the control. "He just destroyed 6 months of feed and $10,000 in equipment. Spring's coming. I need that hay to get the herd through until the grass grows. Without it—" He didn't finish, but Eliza understood. Without feed, he'd have to sell more cattle, probably at a loss. It would cripple him financially, maybe fatally. "What can we do?" she asked. "I don't know. I need to think." He walked away, disappearing into the darkness. Eliza found him an hour later in his study, surrounded by ledgers and papers, his face gray with exhaustion and defeat. "There's no way," he said when she entered. "Even if I sell every head of cattle I can spare, I won't have enough to buy replacement hay and repair the barn. I'm finished." "You're not finished. Look at the numbers, Eliza. Really look at them. I'm barely holding on as it is. This fire just pushed me over the edge." He slumped in his chair. "Maybe I should take Brennan's offer. At least I'd walk away with something." "No." The word came out sharp, fierce. "You don't give up. That's not who you are." "Maybe it should be. Maybe I've been fighting a losing battle all along." Eliza grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me. You are not your father. You are not the man who ran this place into the ground. You built something here, something real and valuable, and we are not going to let Brennan take it just because he's willing to burn us down. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice. We figure this out, together, like partners." "How? With what money? What resources?" "I don't know yet, but we will." She pulled him to his feet. "Right now, you need rest. You've been up for 20 hours. You can't think straight. Sleep first, then we fight." Rowan let her lead him upstairs, too exhausted to argue. They fell into bed together, and he pulled her close like she was the only solid thing in a world falling apart. "I'm going to lose everything," he whispered. "Not everything. You still have me." "What if that's not enough?" Eliza kissed him, fierce and desperate. "Then we'll make it enough." They made love with an urgency born of fear and defiance, clinging to each other like drowning people. Afterward, Rowan finally slept, his face slack with exhaustion. But Eliza lay awake, her mind racing. There had to be a way. Some solution they weren't seeing. She thought about the ledgers, the numbers, the careful accounting Rowan maintained. She thought about Brennan's offer, about the land, about everything Rowan had built. And slowly, an idea began to form. Morning came too soon, gray light filtering through the curtains. Eliza woke first, careful not to disturb Rowan. He looked younger in sleep. The hard lines of his face softened, one hand still reaching for her even unconscious. She dressed quietly and went downstairs. In the study, she lit the lamp and spread out the ledgers she'd watched Rowan pore over night after night. The numbers swam before her eyes at first.
This story was posted on the channel west of Betrayal. Please do not repost it in any form.
Had kept her father's accounts for years. She just needed to see what Rowan couldn't. 2 hours later, she'd found it. Rowan appeared in the doorway, drawn and haggard. "What are you doing?" "Looking at the books. Sit down." "Eliza, I've been over those numbers 100 times. There's no Sit down." Something in her voice made him obey. She pushed a ledger toward him, pointing to a specific column. "You've been thinking about this wrong. You're trying to replace the hay and rebuild the barn with money you don't have, but you don't need to do both at once. The cattle need to eat. That's not negotiable. I know, but look here." She traced a line of figures. "You've got the south 40 acres sitting fallow. You told me last month you were planning to plant feed corn there in spring anyway. That won't be ready until late summer. The cattle need food now. So we buy enough hay to get through until early summer. Not the full 6 months you lost, just 3. That cuts the cost in half. Rowan frowned, leaning closer to study the numbers. That's still more than I have liquid. But it's not more than the ranch has in assets. You own equipment you're not using, that old thresher, the extra wagon, some of the tools gathering dust in the barn. Sell them. They're worth at least $2,000. I kept those as backup in case of emergency. This is the emergency, Rowan. She flipped to another page. And here, you've been paying the hands year-round at full wages, but 3 of them are seasonal workers you only really need in spring and fall. Let them go until you need them again. That saves $400 a month. They've got families. I can't just... You can rehire them in April when the real work starts. It's 2 months, Rowan. They'll find other work, and they'll come back because you treat them fair. She met his eyes. You can't save everyone if you're drowning yourself. He stared at the ledgers, his jaw working. She could see him fighting it, the instinct to reject anything that looked like cutting corners or failing his people. What about the barn? He asked finally. We don't rebuild it. Not yet. We repair the damaged section enough to make it functional and wait on the rest until after we sell the cattle in spring. That's another few thousand saved. Rowan was quiet for a long time, his finger tracing the columns she'd marked. When he looked up, something had shifted in his expression. This could work. It will work. How did you see this? I've been staring at these books for weeks. Because you were trying to fix everything at once. Make it all perfect again immediately. But sometimes you have to triage. Stop the bleeding first, then worry about healing. She touched his hand. You taught me that, actually, when you fell through the ice. You didn't try to do everything at once. You got warm, got stable, then dealt with the rest. That was different. Not really. This is survival too. Just a different kind. Rowan pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. We deserve each other, the good and the bad, and everything in between. She turned to face him. But Rowan, this only works if you actually do it. Let the workers go. Sell the equipment. Make the hard choices. Can you do that? I don't know. It feels like giving up. It's not giving up. It's adapting. There's a difference. He held her tighter. What if it's not enough? What if we do all this and still fail? Then we fail together. But we don't fail today. Today we fight. Something fierce kindled in his eyes. You're right. You're absolutely right. He stood, setting her on her feet. I need to talk to the hands. Get started on this before I lose my nerve. I'm coming with you. Eliza's partner, remember? We do this together. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Together. The next week was brutal. Letting the seasonal workers go was harder than Eliza had anticipated. She watched Rowan explain the situation to each man, saw the disappointment and worry on their faces, but he promised them work in April, gave them each a month's extra pay from his personal funds, money he couldn't afford but gave anyway. I know it's not much, he told them, but I'll make it right when we're through this. You have my word. Most of them understood. A few were angry, but they took the money and left. Thomas stayed, along with 3 other year-round hands. The skeleton crew that remained worked twice as hard to compensate. Selling the equipment proved easier. A neighboring rancher bought the thresher and wagon for fair prices. The tools went to various buyers in town. Within 10 days, Rowan had scraped together enough to buy 3 months of hay from a supplier 2 counties over. The barn repairs went slower. Rowan and the remaining hands worked every spare moment, salvaging what they could, rebuilding the damaged section with salvaged lumber and sheer stubbornness. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. Through it all, Eliza kept the house running, managed the accounts, and made sure Rowan ate and slept. She also started handling some of the correspondence, writing to suppliers, managing deliveries, dealing with the small details that had always fallen to Rowan. Mrs. Chen noticed the change. You are becoming Rancher's wife in truth now, she said one afternoon. Not just title, real partner. I'm trying. He makes it hard sometimes. All men make it hard. Is their nature. She smiled. But he listens to you now. That is progress. She was right. Rowan had started asking Eliza's opinion on decisions, including her in conversations with the hands, trusting her judgment. It wasn't perfect. He still tried to shoulder too much alone, still retreated when things got difficult, but he was trying. One evening, as they lay in bed after a particularly exhausting day, Rowan spoke into the darkness. "I've been thinking about what you said, about priorities changing." "What about it?" "I always thought the ranch had to come first, that if I focused on anything else, everything would fall apart. But watching you these past weeks, seeing how you handle things..." He paused. "Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the ranch runs better when I'm not trying to control every single piece of it."
"You're learning to delegate. That's not weakness." "Feels like it sometimes." His hand found hers under the covers. "My father used to say trust was for fools, that the moment you relied on someone, they'd let you down. I believed that for a long time. And now? Now I'm starting to think maybe he was wrong about a lot of things. Maybe trust isn't about never being let down. Maybe it's about choosing people who are worth the risk." Eliza's throat tightened. "Am I worth the risk?" "Yeah." He pulled her closer. "You are. Even when you scare the hell out of me." "Good, because you're worth the risk too." They made love slowly that night, taking their time, learning each other in ways that had nothing to do with obligation. Afterward, Rowan didn't retreat. He stayed close, his body wrapped around hers. "I think I'm falling in love with you," he whispered, "and I don't know what to do with that." Eliza's heart stuttered. "You don't have to do anything with it. Just let it be." "What if I'm bad at it?" "You're already bad at it, but you're getting better." He laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. "Fair enough." She turned in his arms. "For what it's worth, I think I'm falling in love with you too, despite your many, many flaws." "Many?" "So many. Your stubbornness, your inability to rest, the way you think you have to fix everything alone, your tendency to shut down when you're scared. Should I go on?" "Please don't." "But I love you anyway. Or maybe because of those things, I haven't decided yet." Rowan kissed her, deep and searching. "We're a mess, aren't we?" "Completely, but we're our mess. That has to count for something. It counts for everything." March brought the first real warmth. The snow melted completely, revealing brown grass that would soon turn green. The cattle began to fatten on the new growth. The repaired barn held, ugly but functional. Rowan's careful rationing of the hay meant they'd make it through until the South 40 was ready. They were going to survive. But Brennan wasn't done. The second attack came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Eliza was in the kitchen when she heard shouting from the pastures. She ran outside to find chaos, cattle stampeding toward a broken section of fence, men on horseback trying to turn them back. Rowan was in the middle of it, his horse wheeling and cutting, trying to control the panicked herd. Thomas and two other hands worked the flanks. It took 30 minutes to get the cattle back and another hour to count them. 12 missing, Thomas reported, his face grim. They went through the fence and scattered. Could be miles away by now. Rowan examined the fence. This was cut. Clean cuts, not storm damage. "Brennan," Eliza said. "Has to be. But again, no proof." Rowan's hands clenched on the fence post. 12 head. That's $1,500 minimum. Money we can't afford to lose. "We find them," Eliza said. "We search until we do." "They could be anywhere, and we don't have the manpower for a long search." "Then we ask for help." Rowan looked at her skeptically. "From who?" "The other ranchers, the people in town. You've helped plenty of them over the years, Mrs. Chen told me. Time to call in those debts." "I don't want charity."
This story was posted on the channel
It's
west of
community.
Betrayal.
That's how people
Please
survive
do not
out here, isn't
repost it in
Helping
any
each
form.
other? Rowan wrestled with it, pride warring with practicality. Finally, he nodded. "All right, we ask." Word spread quickly. By the next morning, a dozen neighbors had arrived with horses and supplies. They organized into search parties, fanning out across the territory. Eliza watched them go, hope and worry churning in her stomach. Mrs. Potter from the dress shop arrived with food. "Heard you could use some help," she said simply, unpacking bread and ham and cheese. Figure-searching men need feeding. Other women from town followed, bringing supplies, offering to help in the house, showing up in ways that made Eliza's eyes burn with gratitude. "We take care of our own out here," one of them said. "Rowan's always been fair. Now, we return the favor. By late afternoon, the search parties had recovered 9 of the 12 cattle. Not perfect, but better than nothing. The men who'd helped refused payment, waving off Rowan's attempts to compensate them. "You'd do the same for us," they said. "That's how this works." That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet again, Eliza found Rowan on the porch, staring out at the darkened land. "You all right?" she asked. "I spent 15 years thinking I had to do everything alone, that asking for help was weakness, and today a dozen people showed up just because I needed them." He shook his head. "I don't know what to do with that." "You say thank you, you remember it, and you help them when they need it. I've been so focused on not needing anyone that I forgot people might actually want to help." Eliza wrapped her arms around him from behind. "You're not alone anymore, Rowan. You haven't been since I got here. It just took you a while to notice." He turned, pulling her close. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to fight for your place here. You shouldn't have had to." "I didn't mind fighting. I minded feeling like I was fighting alone." "I know. I was an idiot." "Yes, but you're my idiot." He kissed her, soft and lingering. "I love you, Eliza. I should have said it sooner, but I'm saying it now. I love you." "I love you too, even when you're stubborn and impossible." "Especially then?" "Especially then." 2 weeks later, Eliza realized her courses were late. She didn't say anything at first, not wanting to get Rowan's hopes up. But days passed, then a week, and the familiar symptoms didn't come. Instead, there was a strange tenderness in her breasts, a faint nausea in the mornings. She knew what it meant, but the knowing terrified her. Mrs. Chen noticed first. "You are with child," she said matter-of-factly one afternoon. Eliza nearly dropped the pot she was holding. "How did you—" "I have raised 4 children. I know the signs." She smiled gently. "You have told Mr. Hale?" "Not yet. I'm not sure." "You are sure. Your body knows even if your mind does not accept yet." She touched Eliza's shoulder. "This is good news, yes? This is what you came here for." "I know, I just—" Eliza set down the pot. "Everything's changing. We're finally figuring out how to be married, how to be partners, and now we're adding a child to the mix. What if it's too much? What if we're not ready?" "No one is ever ready. You become ready by doing." Mrs. Chen began chopping vegetables. "Tell him. He deserves to know." That night, Eliza worked up the courage. They were in bed, Rowan reading through supply catalogs while Eliza pretended to read a book. She'd read the same page 5 times without absorbing a single word. "Rowan." "I need to tell you something." Something in her voice made him set down the catalog and give her his full attention. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. At least, I don't think it is." She took a breath. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. Rowan went very still, his expression unreadable. "You're certain?" "As certain as I can be without a doctor. All the signs are there. Mrs. Chen confirmed it today." "Mrs. Chen knew before me?" "She noticed before I said anything. That woman doesn't miss anything." Rowan was quiet for so long that Eliza started to worry. Then slowly, a smile broke across his face, wide and genuine and transforming. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," she confirmed. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I can't believe it. After everything we've been through these past months, after all the chaos, we did it." "We did it," she agreed, though uncertainty still gnawed at her. "Rowan, are you happy about this? Really happy?" He pulled back to look at her. "Why wouldn't I be? This is what we wanted. What I needed." "I know that's what we agreed to, but things are different now. We're different, and I need to know this isn't just about the air anymore. That you want this child because it's ours, not because it solves a problem." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You think I only care about this baby as an heir, as a way to continue the ranch, don't you?" "No." He took her face in his hands. "Eliza, when we started this arrangement, that's all it was. A transaction. An heir to carry on my name and inherit the land. But now?" He pressed his forehead to hers. "Now I want this child because it's part of you, part of us, because it's a life we created together.
And that means everything. You mean that? I mean it. This baby isn't just an heir, it's our son or daughter. Someone we'll raise together, teach together, love together. That's what I want. Not just a name to carry on, but a family. Tears spilled down Eliza's cheeks. I'm scared. Of what? Of everything. Of childbirth, of being a mother, of not being good enough, of this changing everything we've just started to build. Rowan wiped her tears with his thumbs. It will change everything, but we'll figure it out together, just like we've figured out everything else. One day at a time. Promise? I promise. We're partners, remember? Equal. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Eliza kissed him, pouring all her fear and hope and love into it. I love you. I love you too, both of you. His hand moved to her stomach, resting there with reverence. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other, facing the future they were building together. The next morning, Rowan was insufferable. He tried to stop Eliza from lifting anything heavier than a teacup, insisted she rest at every opportunity, and looked like he might have a heart attack when she reached for a pot on a high shelf. Rowan, I'm pregnant, not dying. I know. I just want to make sure you're safe. I'll be safer if you stop hovering. She set the pot down firmly. I'm going to continue running this house the way I always have. I'll be careful, but I'm not going to act like an invalid for the next 6 months. 6 months? He paled. Is that when? Approximately. Late September, early October, if I'm calculating right. That's so far away. And so soon. How is it both? Despite her irritation, Eliza laughed. Welcome to pregnancy. Everything's a contradiction. Word spread through the ranch faster than wildfire. By afternoon, every hand knew. Thomas congratulated them with genuine warmth. Mrs. Chen brought herbs to help with nausea. Even the cattle seemed to sense something had changed, though that was probably Eliza's imagination. What wasn't imagination was Brennan's response. 3 days after the news spread, one of Brennan's men rode up to the house. He handed Rowan an envelope and left without a word. Inside was a letter, written in Brennan's flowing script. Congratulations on your impending fatherhood. I hear it's a joyous occasion, though one that comes with considerable expense and responsibility. My offer still stands, though as mentioned, the price has decreased to $20,000. With a child on the way, surely you'd prefer the security of immediate capital over the uncertainty of ranching. A family man needs stability, after all. I eagerly await your response. Rowan crumpled the letter in his fist. He's threatening us through the baby now, making it sound like he's offering help, when really he's saying I can't provide for my own family. He's desperate, Eliza said. We're winning, and he knows it, so he's trying psychological warfare. It's working. What if he's right? What if I can't provide enough? What if— Stop. Eliza grabbed his shoulders. Don't let him in your head. That's exactly what he wants. We're doing fine. Better than fine. The ranch is stabilizing. We have savings building. We're going to be all right. But a baby costs money. Doctor visits, supplies, everything you'll need. We'll manage. The same way we've managed everything else. She softened her voice. Rowan, we're not the same people who stood on that train platform 6 months ago. We're stronger. Together, we're stronger. Don't forget that now. He pulled her close, breathing hard. I won't let him hurt you, or the baby. Whatever it takes, I'll keep you both safe.
This story was posted on the channel west of
just
Betrayal.
About money or land.
Please do not repost
it's about
it
standing
in any
together.
form.
About not letting fear drive our decisions. You're right. You're always right. Not always, but frequently. That night, Rowan sat at his desk and wrote a response to Brennan, short and direct. The ranch is not for sale. Not now. Not ever. Find another way to expand your empire. This land is spoken for. He sealed it and sent Thomas to deliver it the next morning. Brennan's response came 2 days later, hand-delivered by the same rider. This time, there was no letter. Just a simple calling card with 3 words scrawled on the back. We'll see. It was a promise and a threat. The fight wasn't over. But for the first time since the fire, Rowan didn't face it with fear. He faced it with determination and the knowledge that he wasn't alone.
That evening, as the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Rowan and Eliza stood on the porch together. His arm was around her shoulders. Her hand rested on her stomach, where their child grew. "Whatever comes next," Rowan said quietly, "we handle it together." "Together," Eliza agreed.
The land stretched before them, beautiful and brutal, unforgiving and generous in equal measure. It would test them, as it always had. There would be more challenges, more threats, more moments of fear and uncertainty, but they would face them as partners, as equals, as two people who'd found something neither had expected when they entered this arrangement. They'd found each other, and that made all the difference. April arrived with a violence that matched Brennan's threat. The storms came hard and sudden, turning the roads to rivers of mud, flooding low pastures and testing every repair they'd made to the barn. Rowan worked around the clock, moving cattle to higher ground, reinforcing structures, fighting the land itself. But there was something different in how he fought now. He delegated. He asked for help. He came home at night instead of sleeping in the barn. He came home to Eliza. Her belly had started to show, a small swell that made her dresses fit differently. The morning sickness had been brutal for weeks, but Mrs. Chen's herbs helped, and now Eliza could keep food down more often than not. She felt the baby move for the first time on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, a flutter so faint she thought she'd imagined it. But then it came again, unmistakable. Life, growing inside her. The reality of it hit her all at once, and she had to sit down. "You all right?" Thomas asked, coming into the kitchen with muddy boots. "Fine." The baby just moved. "First time I've felt it." His face lit up. "That's wonderful, ma'am. Wait till the boss hears." When Rowan came in that evening, soaked and exhausted, Eliza took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "Wait. Just wait." They stood there in the kitchen, his large hand warm against her belly, both of them holding their breath. And then it came. That tiny flutter of movement. Rowan's eyes went wide. "Was that was your child saying hello." His face transformed. The exhaustion fell away, replaced by wonder so pure it made Eliza's chest ache. He dropped to his knees, pressing his forehead against her stomach. "Hey there," he whispered. "I'm your father, and I promise you, I'm going to do better than mine did. You're going to know you're loved, every single day." Eliza ran her fingers through his wet hair, tears streaming down her face. This was the man she'd married, not the cold stranger from the train platform, but this. Vulnerable and fierce and so full of love, he didn't know how to contain it. "You're going to be a wonderful father," she said. "I don't know how to be a father. Mine taught me everything not to do, but nothing about what I should. Then we'll figure it out together. Make mistakes together. Learn together." He stood, pulling her into his arms. "I don't deserve you or this baby, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to." "You already deserve us. You just have to believe it." That night they made love with a tenderness that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with the life they were building. Afterward, Rowan kept his hand on her belly, feeling for that flutter of movement, desperate for another connection with the child growing inside her. "What do you think about names?" Eliza asked. "Haven't thought about it. You?" "If it's a girl, maybe Eleanor, after my mother." "Eleanor Hale. That's strong. I like it." He paused. "And if it's a boy?" "I thought maybe you'd want to name him after your father." "No." The word came out hard, final. "I want our child to have their own name, their own life, not tied to the past." "Then we choose together, when the time comes." "When the time comes," he agreed. But time was running out faster than either of them realized. The final confrontation with Brennan came on a Saturday morning in late April. Eliza was in the garden, planting vegetables with Mrs. Chen's help, when she heard horses approaching. Too many horses. She stood, shading her eyes against the sun, and saw Brennan riding up with 6 men behind him. Every instinct screamed danger. "Mrs. Chen, get inside. Find Thomas. Tell him to get Rowan. Now!" Mrs. Chen didn't argue. She disappeared into the house while Eliza walked toward the approaching riders, her heart hammering. She wouldn't let them see fear. Brennan dismounted with exaggerated courtesy. "Mrs. Hale, lovelier every time I see you. Motherhood agrees with you. What do you want, Brennan? Just a friendly visit. Thought I'd check on my future property. This isn't your property. It never will be. That's where you're wrong. He gestured to his men, who began spreading out around the yard. You see, I've been patient, made offers, tried to be reasonable, but patience has its limits. I need this land and I'm tired of waiting. You can't just take it. Can I? Who's going to stop me? Your husband's barely holding on financially. One more disaster, one more setback, and he'll have no choice but to sell. I'm just here to provide that final push. Rowan appeared from the barn, Thomas and the other hands behind him. They were outnumbered, but they stood their ground. Get off my land, Brennan. Or what? You'll fight me? You and your skeleton crew against my men? Brennan smiled. I don't think so. Sign the papers, Rowan. 20,000. Final offer. Take it, or I take the land anyway when you default on your loans. I'm not defaulting. We're current on everything. For now. But I have friends at the bank. One word from me and they'll call in your notes. You can't cover them all at once. You'll lose everything. You're bluffing. Am I? Brennan pulled out a document. Foreclosure notice. Effective in 30 days unless you pay $15,000 in full. The banks decided your risk is too high, given the recent incidents. They want their money now. Rowan went pale. Eliza felt the world tilt. You bribed them, Rowan said. You corrupt son of a... I encouraged them to protect their interests. There's a difference. Brennan tucked the document away. So you have a choice. Sell to me now for $20,000, enough to pay off the bank and have something left over. Or fight this, lose everything, and get nothing. Your wife, your baby. Where will they go when you've got nothing left? The threat was clear. Brennan wasn't just trying to take the ranch. He was trying to destroy everything Rowan had built, everything he'd become. Eliza stepped forward. You forget something, Brennan. This isn't just his ranch anymore. It's ours, our home, our future, and you're not taking it. Brave words from a woman in your condition, but bravery doesn't pay debts. No, but community does. Eliza raised her voice, addressing Brennan's men. You men work for Brennan. You take his money, but ask yourselves, is this the kind of man you want to work for? One who burns barns and threatens pregnant women? Who corrupts banks and destroys honest people's livelihoods? A few of the men shifted uncomfortably. Brennan's smile thinned. My men are loyal, he said. Are they? Because loyalty should run both ways, and I know for a fact that Brennan here hasn't paid you in 3 weeks. Thomas heard about it in town. You're working for promises, same as we are. Difference is, we actually keep ours. One of Brennan's men spoke up. That true, boss? About the pay? Temporary cash flow issue. You'll get your money. That's what you said 2 weeks ago. The tension shifted. Brennan's men were looking at him differently now, doubt creeping in. Rowan saw the opening. Any of you want honest work? He called out. I'm hiring again in 2 weeks. Full wages, paid on time. No burning, no threatening, no corruption, just ranching. 2 of Brennan's men exchanged glances. One actually nodded. Brennan's face went red. You can't steal my workers. I'm not stealing anyone. I'm offering a choice, something you never do. The standoff stretched, brittle and dangerous. Brennan's hand moved toward his coat. Rowan tensed, but before anything could happen, the sound of more horses filled the air. A dozen riders crested the hill, neighbors, townspeople, the same people who'd helped search for the lost cattle. At the front rode the bank manager.
This story
Mr.
was
Peterson,
posted on the channel
looking
west of
distinctly
the trail.
uncomfortable.
Please do not
Mr.
repost
Peterson,
it in any
Rowan
form.
called. Glad you could make it. Brennan's face went from red to pale. What is this? Peterson dismounted, avoiding Brennan's glare. Mr. Hale contacted me yesterday with some interesting information about irregularities in his loan processing and about certain inducements offered to approve foreclosure proceedings. That's slander. It's documentation. Rowan pulled out his own papers, letters, bank statements, copies of conversations. You weren't as careful as you thought, Brennan. Your bribe to Peterson's clerk? We have the receipt. Your threats to the loan officer? He wrote them down. You wanted to destroy me, but you got sloppy. Eliza watched the realization dawn on Brennan's face. He'd been outmaneuvered. Rowan had learned from her. Adapt. Use what you have. Fight smart, not just hard. The foreclosure notice is void, Peterson said formally. The bank extends its apologies for the error. Mr. Hale's loans are in good standing. Furthermore, Rowan continued, we've filed a formal complaint about your business practices with the territorial marshal. Arson, vandalism, bribery. Witness statements from your own men about the barn fire and the cut fences. You're done, Brennan. The neighbors had surrounded them now, not threatening, just present. A community standing together. Brennan looked around at all those faces and seemed to shrink. You can't prove anything, he tried. We can prove enough. And even if we couldn't, you're finished here. No one will work for you. No one will do business with you. You've shown everyone what you really are. Rowan stepped closer. Leave. Sell your ranch to someone decent and leave this territory. Because if you stay, if you ever threaten my family again, proof won't matter. I'll end you myself. The words were quiet, but everyone heard them, and everyone believed them. Brennan stared at Rowan for a long moment, hate and defeat warring on his face. Then he turned to his men. Mount up. Half of them didn't move. 3 actually dismounted and walked over to Rowan's side. The rest followed Brennan, but their loyalty looked shaken. As Brennan rode away, his power broken, Eliza felt the tension drain from her body. She swayed and Rowan was there instantly, catching her. I've got you. I know you do. The neighbors cheered. Someone clapped Rowan on the back. Mrs. Chen appeared with water and fussed over Eliza. Thomas grinned like he'd just won a prize fight. Later, after everyone had left and promises had been made to celebrate properly, Rowan and Eliza sat on the porch watching the sunset. How did you do it? Eliza asked. The documentation, the witnesses, getting Peterson here? After you showed me how to see the numbers differently, I started looking at everything differently. I couldn't outspend Brennan or outfight him, but I could outthink him. He was so focused on power plays he forgot about details, about proof, about the fact that corruption requires secrecy, and he wasn't as secret as he thought. You learned to fight smart. I learned from you. Adapt. Use what you have. Trust the community. He took her hand. You saved us, Eliza. Your mind, your courage. You stood up to him when I was ready to fold. We saved us. Together. That's how it works now. Yeah, that's how it works. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the land turn gold in the evening light. The ranch spread before them, scarred by fire and struggle, but still standing. Still theirs. I've been thinking, Rowan said, about what happens next. What do you mean? The baby's coming in 5 months. The ranch is stable. We've got breathing room for the first time in years. He turned to face her. What do you want, Eliza? Not what you agreed to, not what circumstances forced on you. What do you actually want for your life? The question caught her off guard. I haven't thought about it. Think about it now. Eliza considered. 6 months ago, she would have said survival, security, a place to belong. But now? I want to keep doing this. Building something with you. Not just the ranch, but a life. A real partnership. She touched her belly. I want to raise this child in a home filled with love, not just duty. I want to teach again someday. Maybe start that school in town we talked about. I want to wake up and not feel like I'm just surviving. I want to feel alive. You make me feel alive, Rowan said quietly. I was dead inside before you came here. Just going through motions, building something I couldn't even enjoy because I was too afraid to feel anything. You changed that. You made me remember what it's like to want something beyond work, to need someone. Was it terrible? Needing someone? Terrifying. Still is sometimes. But also, he searched for words. Also the best thing that's ever happened to me. Loving you. Being loved by you. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. I love you, Rowan Hale. Your stubbornness and your strength and even your fear. All of it. I love you, Eliza Hale. Your mind and your courage and the way you won't let me give up on myself. He kissed her softly. Thank you for answering that advertisement, for taking a chance on a broken man with a failing ranch. Thank you for letting me in, for being brave enough to change. They held each other as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and pink.
Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The ranch would demand attention. The baby would need preparing for.
Life would continue in all its messy, complicated glory, but they would face it together. The next months passed in a blur of preparation and growth. Rowan rebuilt the barn properly, with help from the neighbors he'd finally learned to accept. The South 40 acres produced a strong crop of feed corn. The cattle fattened on good grass and sold at market for prices that made Rowan's ledgers look healthy for the first time in years. Eliza's belly swelled. The baby kicked constantly, especially at night when Rowan would lie with his ear pressed against her stomach, talking to their child about the ranch, about the land, about the life waiting for them. "You're going to love it here," he'd whisper. Wide open spaces, the smell of grass after rain. Your mother's cooking, which is pretty good most of the time. Most of the time, Eliza would protest. The pot roast last week was a little dry. You ate 3 helpings. I was being polite. They'd laugh, and the baby would kick, like it was laughing too. Mrs. Chen helped prepare the nursery, sewing tiny clothes and blankets. The ranch hands built a cradle, each of them contributing some small touch. Thomas carved animals on the headboard. One of the older hands painted it a soft cream color. It became a community project. Everyone invested in this new life coming into their world. In September, as Eliza grew large and uncomfortable, Rowan became simultaneously more attentive and more nervous. He jumped at every wince, rushed to help her stand, and looked vaguely terrified whenever she mentioned the approaching birth. "What if something goes wrong?" he asked one night. "Then we deal with it. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time, Rowan. I'll be fine." "You don't know that." "No, but I trust my body, and I trust Mrs. Chen, who's delivered half the babies in this county, and I trust you to keep me safe." "I can't protect you from this." "I don't need you to protect me from it. I need you to be with me through it. There's a difference." He understood. On October 3rd, when Eliza's pain started in the pre-dawn hours, he didn't panic. He sent Thomas for Mrs. Chen and the doctor. He stayed by Eliza's side, holding her hand, letting her squeeze until his bones ached. Labor was brutal and long. Eliza had read about it, prepared as best she could, but nothing truly prepared you for the reality of it. The pain came in waves that threatened to drown her. She screamed. She cursed. She told Rowan this was all his fault, and he agreed completely. "I'm sorry," he said, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry, just—" Another contraction hit, and she gripped his hand so hard he gasped. Mrs. Chen remained calm throughout, checking progress, offering encouragement. The doctor arrived and confirmed everything was proceeding normally, if slowly. Rowan looked like he might pass out when the doctor explained exactly what normally entailed. "Maybe you should wait downstairs," Eliza panted. "I'm not leaving you. You look like you're going to faint. I'm fine." He wasn't fine, but he stayed anyway, turning pale and sweating but refusing to leave. When the final pushes came and Eliza screamed with effort, he was there supporting her back, whispering encouragement. "You can do this. You're the strongest person I know. Just a little more. I love you. You can do this." And then suddenly, a baby's cry filled the room. "A girl!" Mrs. Chen announced, wrapping the tiny, squalling infant in a blanket. "You have a daughter!" Rowan's face transformed. Mrs. Chen placed the baby in Eliza's arms, and they both stared down at this tiny person they'd created. Red-faced and screaming, covered in vernix, the most beautiful thing either of them
This
had
story
ever
was
seen.
posted on the channel
"Hello,
west
Eleanor,"
of Betrayal.
Eliza whispered.
Please do not repost
"We've
it
been
in any
waiting for you."
form.
The baby stopped crying as if recognizing her mother's voice. Her eyes, dark blue and unfocused, seemed to look right at them. Rowan reached out with a trembling finger, and tiny fingers wrapped around it with surprising strength. "She's perfect," he breathed. "Absolutely perfect." "She's angry and messy and loud," Eliza said, but her smile was radiant. "She's perfect." Mrs. Chen and the doctor finished their work and left the new parents alone. Rowan climbed carefully onto the bed beside Eliza, and they both looked down at their daughter. "I don't know how to be a father," Rowan admitted. "You'll learn. We'll both learn, together." Eleanor made a small sound, her face scrunching up. Rowan touched her tiny hand again. wonder written across his features. "I promise you," he said to his daughter, "you'll never doubt you're loved. You'll never feel like you're not enough. You'll know every day that you matter, that you're wanted. You'll have a better life than I did. I swear it." "She'll also be spoiled rotten if you keep looking at her like that," Eliza said. "Probably. I don't care." They stayed like that for hours, the three of them. A family, not the one either Rowan or Eliza had planned for or expected, but the one they'd built through struggle and choice and love that had grown despite all the obstacles. The weeks after Eleanor's birth were chaos. The baby demanded constant attention, crying at all hours, needing to be fed and changed and held. Eliza was exhausted and sore, but fiercely protective. Rowan tried to help, but was terrified of doing something wrong. He held Eleanor like she might break, changed diapers with exaggerated care, and paced the floors at night when she cried. "You're going to wear a hole in the floor," Eliza said one night, watching him walk back and forth with Eleanor against his shoulder. "She won't stop crying. What if something's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. She's a baby. Crying is what they do." "But what if—" "Rowan, she's fine, you're fine. We're all fine. Sit down before you exhaust yourself." He sat, still holding Eleanor, who promptly fell asleep against his chest. He looked down at her with such tenderness, it made Eliza's heart ache. "I never knew I could feel like this," he said quietly. "Like someone could matter so much that it physically hurts. Every time I look at her, I think about all the ways the world could hurt her, and I want to stand between her and everything." "You can't protect her from everything." "I know, but I'll try anyway." "That's what makes you a good father, not that you can shield her from pain, but that you want to, that you'll be there when pain finds her anyway." Eleanor stirred, making small noises. Rowan adjusted his hold, and she settled again. "Did I ever tell you," Eliza said, "that I never wanted children before I met you?" "What?" "It's true. I saw what motherhood did to the women around me, how it trapped them, limited them. I thought it would be the same for me, but with you, with Eleanor, it's not a trap. It's a choice I made, and I'd make it again." "Even with all the sleepless nights and crying?" "Even with all of that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sleep. Outside, the ranch continued its rhythms. Cattle lowed in distant pastures. The wind whispered through the grass. The land that had been Rowan's entire world had expanded to include something more precious. By December, they'd found their rhythm. Eleanor was sleeping better, though still waking once or twice a night. Eliza had recovered her strength and started taking more active role in the ranch again. Rowan had learned to change diapers without panic and could soothe Eleanor's cries almost as well as Eliza. The ranch prospered. With the crisis past and Brennan gone, he'd sold his land and left the territory in disgrace. Rowan could focus on building rather than just surviving. He rehired the seasonal workers. He invested in improvements. He even took a full day off once a month, spending it with Eliza and Eleanor. On Christmas morning, they sat in the parlor with Eleanor on a blanket between them. She was 2 months old, starting to smile, beginning to reach for things. Rowan had given Eliza a new coat, warm and well-made. She'd given him a watch that had belonged to her father. "For a man who used to say he didn't have time for sentiment," she said as he opened it, "I was an idiot." "Yes, but you're my idiot." He kissed her, soft and lingering. Eleanor chose that moment to grab his nose, and they both laughed. "Think she'll remember this?" Rowan asked. "Her first Christmas?" "No, but we will. And we'll tell her about it." "Tell her how her father was terrified every second of her first months?" "Tell her how her father loved her so much he paced holes in the floor, how he held her every night, how he changed everything he was to be the father she deserved." Rowan's eyes went suspiciously bright. "You give me too much credit." "I give you exactly the right amount." They spent the day together, the three of them. No work, no obligations, just family. That evening, after Eleanor was asleep in her cradle, Rowan and Eliza stood at their bedroom window, looking out at the ranch. Snow had fallen during the day, covering everything in white. The land looked pristine, beautiful, full of possibility. "A year ago," Rowan said, "I was alone, angry, convinced I didn't need anyone, and now you have everything you never knew you wanted." "Yeah, and it terrifies me. What if I mess this up?
What if I'm not enough? Eliza turned him to face her. You're going to mess up sometimes. We both will. That's what parents do. But Eleanor won't need us to be perfect. She'll just need us to be present, to love her, to show her that mistakes don't define us. How we handle them does. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You were just too stubborn to notice. He pulled her close, resting his chin on her head. I love you, Eliza Hale, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I love you too, even when you're stubborn and impossible. Especially then? Especially then. They stood together, watching snow fall on the land they'd fought for, the home they'd built, the life they'd created. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. There would be hard times ahead, difficult seasons, sick cattle, sleepless nights with a teething baby, but they would face it together, partners, equals. Two people who'd started as strangers bound by necessity and become something neither expected, a family. Spring came early that year, melting the snow and turning the world green. Eliza worked in her garden while Eleanor slept in a basket nearby, warm in the sunshine. Rowan rode in from checking the cattle, dismounting to join them. South pasture looks good, he reported. Should be able to move the herd there next week. Good. Mrs. Chen says there's talk of starting that school in town. They want to know if I'm still interested in teaching. Are you? Maybe. Not yet. Eleanor's too young. But in a year or two? Yes. I think I'd like that. Rowan sat beside her in the grass, picking up Eleanor, who'd woken and was making grabbing motions toward him. What do you think, little one? Should we let your mother go teach? Eleanor gurgled, which they took as agreement. Of course, we'd need to hire more help, Eliza continued. Someone to watch Eleanor while I'm teaching, and you'd have to be okay with me being gone during the day. I'm okay with whatever makes you happy. If teaching makes you happy, we make it work. Eliza looked at him, this man who'd changed so much from the cold stranger on the train platform. You know what makes me happy? This, right here. You and Eleanor and this life we built. Everything else is just addition. But you want more than just this. I want this and more. I want to be a mother and a wife and a teacher. I want to help run this ranch and raise our daughter and contribute to the community. Why should I have to choose? You shouldn't, and you won't. We'll figure it out just like we've figured out everything else. Thomas rode up, dismounting quickly. Boss, neighbors are gathering for the spring branding next week. Wanted to confirm you'd be there. We'll both be there, Rowan said, glancing at Eliza. She nodded. Last year she'd have stayed home. Now she was part of the community, known and valued. She'd helped at the winter barn raising, organized the women to prepare food, even started keeping records for two of the smaller ranches whose owners couldn't read well. She wasn't just Rowan's wife anymore. She was Eliza Hale, rancher's partner, mother, neighbor, friend. After Thomas left, Eliza leaned against Rowan's shoulder, watching Eleanor try to grab at grass with uncoordinated hands. Do you ever think about how different this all turned out from what we expected? She asked. Every day. Do you regret it? Any of it? The only thing I regret is wasting so much time being afraid, of feeling, of needing, of letting you in. He kissed the top of her head. But we got here eventually. That's what matters. We did. And you know what I learned? What? That love isn't what I thought it was. I used to think it was romance and passion and grand gestures. But real love is this. It's choosing each other every day. It's working through fear together. It's building something solid even when everything tries to tear it down. It's also staying up all night.
This story was posted on the channel West of Betrayal.
Rowan added.
Please do not repost it in any form.
Eleanor reached for Eliza, and Rowan handed her over. She settled against Eliza's chest, content. You're going to be something special, Eliza told her daughter. Smart and strong and fierce. You'll have your father's determination and hopefully your mother's wisdom. You'll know you're loved. You'll know you can be anything you want. And you'll know that family isn't just blood, it's choice. It's the people who stand with you when everything falls apart. That's a lot of pressure for someone who can't even hold her own head up yet, Rowan said. She'll grow into it. We all do. They sat together in the grass, the three of them, while the ranch bustled around them. Somewhere, cattle lowed. A hawk circled overhead. The breeze carried the smell of new growth and possibility. This was what they'd built. Not the cold arrangement that brought Eliza to Montana, but something real and warm and worth fighting for. A partnership forged in necessity that became something neither of them could have planned or predicted. Love. Not the easy kind from stories. The hard kind. The kind that required work and patience and the courage to be vulnerable. The kind that wasn't about finding someone perfect, but finding someone you could build something with. Someone who made you want to be better than you were. Rowan had learned to need. Eliza had learned to fight. Together, they'd learned that strength wasn't about standing alone. It was about having someone to stand with. As the sun moved across the sky and Eleanor fell asleep between them, Eliza looked out at the land that had become home. The ranch stretched before them, 3,000 acres of promise and challenge. It would test them again. Winters would come, cattle would sicken, fences would break, life would throw every obstacle it could at them. But they'd face it together. And in the end, that made all the difference. That was the real legacy they were building. Not just land or cattle or wealth to pass to the next generation, but the knowledge that love, real, difficult, imperfect love, was worth every struggle. That choosing each other every day through fear and hardship and doubt created something stronger than either of them could build alone. Eleanor stirred, opening her eyes. She looked up at her parents with that serious, unfocused gaze babies have, and Eliza could have sworn she saw recognition there. Understanding, maybe, that she'd been born into something special. "Welcome to the family, little one," Eliza whispered. "We're not perfect, but we're yours. And we're here. Always." Rowan's arm came around her shoulders, pulling both his girls close. And as they sat there in the Montana sunshine, watching the land they'd fought for bloom into spring, they knew one thing with absolute certainty. They were home. Not because of the ranch or the house or the cattle in the pastures, but because of each other. Because they'd chosen this life, these struggles, this love. And they'd choose it again, every single day, for the rest of their lives. That was the real story. Not of a desperate arrangement between strangers, but of two broken people who found each other in the wilderness and built something worth keeping. Something that would outlast them both, carried forward in the daughter sleeping between them and all the children who might come after. A legacy of love. Hard won, fiercely protected, and absolutely real. And that, in the end, was enough.